Dude, it's so funny. It's so funny. I can tell when I'm about to say something that I know some of these people on Twitter will be like, dude, they get it. Thank Christ. And then I can tell when I'm about to say something where they'd be like, this guy is so stupid. He doesn't want the guy. Dude, I can tell. It's funny. If you
self-awareness
like, if you clockwork oranged anybody to watch this podcast, they would just like have so many. I don't know if they would think we are stupid or geniuses. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Pogcast, the show dedicated to talking about all the poggers things in life, like music, content creation, and video games. I am one of your co-hosts, JesseKazam.
And I am two completely distinct people, one of which is a weeb. I'm now a weeb.
You're a weeb now?
Technically, yep. And then... what was the other one? Oh my god, I forget what the other one was. I guess maybe I'm just a weeb. I watched my first anime.
Oh,
well, actually, outside of, I don't know if these count, but I watched Dragon Ball Z as a kid. Okay, I watched Pokemon as a kid, and then obviously Cory in the House. Those are the only three animes I watched.
Okay, but what did you just recently?
Edge Runners.
Oh yeah, that's so good, isn't it?
Oh, you saw it?
Yeah, I watched Edge Runners, yep.
Yeah, it was fucking good.
It's really good.
Although I was told that it wasn't made in Japan, so it's not technically an anime.
Yeah,
so.
I don't know. That's what I've heard that too about some things, but...
I don't know what the fucking
Edge Runners is sick.
Dude, it was so good. Wait, so did you play Cyberpunk?
A little, like when it first came out. I watched Edge Runners just because so many people were like, bro, watch Edge Runners. And so like,
I never even heard of it until I was like the day before I finished Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
So
so
I'm a weeb now.
This isn't anime, I don't think either, but did you ever watch Arcane? Brother.
Is that an anime?
It's an animated show set in the League of Legends universe.
Oh god, I can't imagine a less interesting universe that I would want to be.
It was better than Edge Runners 100%. Unironically, like top 10 TV shows I've watched in the past 2-3 years. Huh. It's really like I literally did not watch it for like the amount of people that told me to watch Arcane, and then I would watch a trailer and I'd be like, nope, not interested in this. And then the next time I like didn't have a show to watch, I was like, chat, what should I watch? And people were like watch Arcane, and I was like, nah. And then I watched it, and it was so good. It was a very good show.
Yeah, I'll look into it. I don't know anything about like League of Legends.
Nor do you need to. Neither do I. I've never played League of Legends once in my entire life, and I've probably consumed less than 10 minutes of League of Legends content. As far as like, it's really just like it shouldn't. I shouldn't have even said it. I should have just said watch Arcane. It's really good because it has nothing to do with like League of Legends. Well, I guess
it's just
it
like
could, maybe.
The opening scene is just like a kid with his keyboard and his keyboards everywhere, and he's like, this is an anime.
Yeah, I literally know nothing about League of Legends. I have not steered you wrong yet.
All right, I'll look into it.
I'll look into it. And it's
only
on
Netflix. Is it
Netflix?
One season?
And it's only one season. Yeah.
Okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah,
I can get behind that.
I think it was a Netflix original. Yeah.
It looks interesting.
It was just because the thing is like I don't really care. Like this, I'm so tired of settings. I want good stories. The amount of TV shows I've started and like anything cool that they set up in the first few episodes, they just ignore, or all of the character development just goes away. Basically, everything you feel about Starfield's like story and narrative, where you're like, what is this doing here? Why is it here? You could have made this a cool moment. That is how I feel about how 90% of TV shows, people are like, watch the show. And I'm like, all right. And like the first 2 episodes, I'm like, okay, you have me invested. And then they just systematically dismantle everything. And I hate it so much. And so, but the thing is that all those shows have phenomenal settings. So it's like, at this point, I don't care what the setting is. You know what I mean? I just want you to care about your characters and the story that you're telling. And Arcane is like narrative. It's all it is. Like, it's character development. It's narrative. It's like, it feels good. So that's why I enjoyed it, because I was like, I don't know anything about League of Legends, but if you're trying to tell me a good story, I'll be here for that. And that's what it was.
I liked I think there were some elements of Edge Runners where I'd have to watch it again to like actually pay attention, but
yeah,
there's a lot of like lingo and stuff that I don't think I would have quite gotten had I not played Cyberpunk. Just all of the little
there's
sayings
probably
that
some
they
layers
have,
that I missed. Yeah.
you know, where people like they're like nicknames for people, or like, you know, like bro or whatever. They'll say like choom or gonk.
Yeah.
Gonk is like you idiot. You know, and then a lot of other things. I guess you could probably pick up on some other things, you know, like when they say like I gotta go, and it's like we got a delta.
Yeah.
But there's just like a bunch of things that they didn't waste any time trying to explain.
Yes.
It's like, oh, it's a cyber psycho, blah blah blah. It's like,
and
I just know.
Love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love feeling like I'm catching up to what's happening. I don't feel like I hate it when
you don't
it's
want the
like
character to be like, wow, a cyber psycho. I remember hearing about that from my mom when she told me that
they almost like looked to the camera. I just read about how these are the most dangerous creatures in the world. It's like, oh, that kills me. So I love that. Yeah, where it's just all the lingo and everything, and you're just picking it up as you go. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was good. I've been watching that.
Edge Runners was dope for sure.
So,
did you finish the expansion to Cyberpunk, or did you put it down before you started?
I purchased it, I installed it, and then promptly uninstalled it to install Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like I don't want to say like I lost interest, but once I finished the main story, I kind of felt like if I'm gonna play more Cyberpunk, I want to start over from the beginning, and I want to like do everything, like go super wide. Yeah. I really kind of I don't want to say I focused on the main quest, because I did branch out and do a couple little things here and there. But there was just an infinite amount of content I know I missed. And then there's the DLC, which everybody is saying is like better than the main game itself. So at some point I'm going to go back, make a female character this time, because the character I was interested in, she's so
that makes sense. Plan, you got to a point where it was like, if I'm going to keep playing, I'm devoting like 90 more hours to it, or I break here and then come back later.
Yeah. So I've just been playing Red Dead, and holy fuck, like it's so wild going from Baldur's Gate to then Starfield to then Cyberpunk to then Red Dead. I feel like is even like
really?
This is the reason why I was hesitating when I was like, do I give Cyberpunk like an 8.7 or like a 9.5 out of 10? Like I can't tell. And like the reason why I would want to give it like an 8.8, you know, it's because I need space for Red Dead to be like a 9.5.
Yeah. You don't want to put yourself in a place where anything better than what you just reviewed has to be like a masterpiece. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
so
that's cool.
Red Dead 2 is, I played Red Dead 1, but I just like was never interested in Red Dead 2 when it came out. I just I don't know. You know how sometimes you're just like in the mood for certain settings and whatever.
Sure.
And I'm just not in the mood for.
It was also because, what'd you say? How old is it? 5 years old? 4 years old?
5 years. 5.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking like 2018, 2019 Tarkov, right? Like that's what happened to me is like,
exactly. True.
I was looking forward to Red Dead so bad, because Red Dead 1 was one of my favorite RPGs like that I'd played. But then I was like streaming, I was getting into streaming, and I was playing Tarkov, and it was like when everything was happening. And so it came out, and my brother played it and was like, bro, you have to play it. And I just, at the time, I wasn't interested. But I watched a bunch of people play it, and it looked insane.
Yeah, man, Cyberpunk inspired me to want to make like a whole bunch of content, and then Red Dead is like inspired me to want to make a whole bunch of other, like there's like no market for this. I mean, it's one of those things like, depending on who made the video and when, something like this could make you know, it could get 1 million views. If I released it now, I don't know that it would necessarily like do fantastic, but I want to do like the sights and sounds of Red Dead, where I'm just like full immersion, just slow walking through, looking at like the god rays.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's because it's just it might be the most immersive game I think I've ever played.
Red Dead, yeah.
I mean, the sound, phenomenal.
Even just those few clips you showed me, I noticed that the sound was like insane.
It's got the fullest soundscape I think I've ever experienced, where it's like, you hear just the crickets and the cicadas and everything around you, and
yeah,
your horse is like, clomping through the fucking mud, and there's just footprints in the mud.
Yeah.
And then like, a cart goes by and there's like the perfect tracks from like the wagon wheels, and you see the mud every now and then flicking off of the wagon wheels. And then your horse takes a shit, just like a horse does.
Yep.
And then there are just conversations going on around you, ambience, and you see smoke off in the distance, and like the fires look good. And I've been like experimenting with so many little things, expecting the game to be like, okay, I'm going to try this thing. I don't expect it to work. And kind of like Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of like, wow, I can't believe that actually worked. Now, I will say that the one thing that's been a little bit annoying, but because the game is so good, it's one of those things that like doesn't detract a ton from my opinion of the game. But fuck me, the controls, dude, on PC. It's
really?
Keyboard and mouse. Holy shit. Now it makes for hilarious moments.
Yeah.
But like you saw the clip where I got like stalked by a bunch of. I would like turn and look and then like run for a while. And I'm like trying to press like left click, right click, tab. I'm like, pull out my gun.
Yeah.
Pull out the gun. And I just like can't.
Yeah.
I spent a bunch of time like fishing, which I've like never been interested in fishing ever. And it's like, it's super chill and super relaxing until you're trying to catch like a legendary catfish or whatever. And then like,
and it gets,
I'm like doing this, dude, trying to like pull back on the It's like, oh my God. The controls are definitely jank. A lot of people say like, oh yeah, it's a controller game. I have no idea how you could even play it on the controller. I'm like so not interested in controllers anymore. Like ever since I started playing PC, unless I'm like driving. But I can't imagine with all of the like keybinds and everything there are, like how it would even work on controller. And I don't want to learn now.
Yeah. So. I remember playing the first one on controller, but I don't know.
Yeah, but the first one there was just not nearly as many types of interactions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
As there is now. But yeah, I played the original when it came out on like Xbox 360, I think.
Yep.
But yeah,
dude,
I don't know, the game is fucking fantastic.
It looks fantastic. Yeah, I played the first Red Dead to death. Did you ever play the game? I don't know if Rockstar made this, but there was the game Red Dead Revolver. That was, I think, the prequel to Red Dead Redemption. I played that.
No, I didn't. People were asking me about it, but
yeah, dude, Red Dead is pretty sick.
Yeah, it was made by Rockstar 2004. It looks like.
Yeah. Are you kind of doing the main quest, or are you just kind of like moseying around?
I've been doing a lot of moseying around. Like I don't know how much of the game I've experienced. I want to say, so I literally just saved for the first time because like the prologue was like 20 hours of gameplay.
Really?
And you can't save at all during the entire period. So even though the game just like auto saves in a bunch of places, but so right before the podcast was the first time I was able to actually save, and next to the save file it said 40%. I'm gonna assume that that's like my progress through the main storyline, although I could be completely wrong. For all I know, it was like how long it was taking to save the file.
Yeah,
and I just I don't know, but yeah, I've just been doing you just pick a direction, you ride your horse, and you see like a campfire off in the distance, or you hear someone yelling, or someone comes running out of the fucking brush and they're like, I got bit by a snake, and you gotta like,
dude, that's
suck the venom out. from their fucking leg.
That thing you showed me was unreal. The first one you showed me, like where you actually like you were in first person perspective, which I hadn't seen a lot of gameplay from Red Dead in that perspective. And like that was something I noticed the sound to as you got closer to her, like how she was crying. I didn't even know you had those like contextual things to like greet. Like you were just hitting greet the stranger, but it was contextually like you were like, are you okay? Like, ma'am, talk to me. You know what I mean? But you weren't just, that wasn't like a prompt. You could have completely not done that. And then like all those dudes just come at you and the first thing you do is you just like blow her away. You're just like, boom. That was insane.
Yeah, the dialogue, I actually really like, you literally only have, you can greet and like antagonize. And like sometimes you can like diffuse the situation. You can walk up to somebody, or if you step in front of somebody and they'll be like, yo, what the fuck? You can like either choose to rob them. Or you can kind of try to diffuse the situation. And normally they're like, yeah, keep walking. But there's a little combination that, people were telling me about. And then I've tried it a few times. And it's like, if you greet, antagonize, you'd be like, hey, that's a really nice looking horse. And the person will be like, hey, thanks. And you'll say like something else really nice, and they'll be like, oh, okay, cool. And you'll be like, how long? And then if you do antagonize as the third one, it's like, so how long you been married to it? It's like, and then like, what the fuck? And then it just totally like, it's a contextual insult based
That's cool.
Based on the first, and I haven't experienced a duplicate yet.
Damn. That's cool.
And some of his insults are savage, dude.
That's like so a super interesting way to go about that, I guess, as opposed to like having lines of dialogue and then like multiple answers that you select. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. That's an interesting way where you just kind of, it just gesture, but then it actually adds to the conversation. And like it's not just, I would have guessed that if you greet, and then antagonize, the antagonize would just be something random. Like that's wild that it's actually something else. I noticed from watching you was like, I like how natural it feels that like people were talking, and instead of you just like walking up to their conversation and they continue, they like interrupt themselves and they stop what they're doing and they're like, oh, hey. Because like that's what you would do. Like if you were having a private conversation and somebody walked up, you would just be like, "Oh, hey, what's up?"
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like you wouldn't just keep talking as if they weren't there. So
yeah, it's supernatural. Well, not
supernatural.
Not supernatural. But it's funny because I remember talking about this when I did the Tarkov AI video back in the day. I had that little clip where the dude like flipped his horse over.
Oh yeah.
And then like they get in a fight and whatever. And I talked a little bit about, now there was a couple of like slight misunderstandings or misconceptions, like my interpretation of the scene.
Yeah.
But it's like now getting into the game and then I just have a whole new appreciation for how much attention to detail. And you know what? The funny thing is it's actually kind of like, this is a little bit like 7 IQ of me. But you know how I was talking a bunch about the dude that tweeted, the developer that tweeted the whole like, this shouldn't be a raised standard about Baldur's Gate. One of the things he said in that message, in that tweet was, I want to make sure I get it right. He says, I'm scrolling up. Shit. It's not, I guess it's not in the first one. But so at some point in that conversation, he says something about like, it's like rockstar level scope. And it just occurred to me now that like, I think he was talking about Rockstar Games.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like I just didn't, I hadn't played a Rockstar game in for so long. I genuinely forgot they fucking existed.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's because they're still making DLC for Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yeah.
Dude, I think we've talked about this before. Isn't it crazy Grand Theft Auto 5 released on the Xbox 360?
I mean, I remember it taking like 2 hours to install. That was the first game that like I had
Yeah.
to install like digitally
Yeah.
and took forever.
Yeah. Grand Theft Auto 5 is like the peak player base on GTA 5 is like unreal. Like you still have Summit playing like RP servers. Like it's insane the amount of people playing. And that game literally has lasted 3 console generations. It came out on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. They re-released it on the PS4 and the Xbox One, and they re-released it on the Xbox One X and the PS5. And people are still playing it. There have been all these leaks about GTA 6. Like there was a big like hacker, like somebody hacked Rockstar and like leaked
I saw that yesterday.
Yeah, and leaked a few things. So apparently they are working on GTA 6, but like, dude, it's crazy. That has to be one of the most milked games of all time. Like, yeah, sure, they've released Skyrim several times, but the amount of people that just still play and they make so much money off it still is wild.
Well, yeah, I mean, like,
it is wild.
If you think about it, the budgets for these games have just gone astronomical, right?
Yeah.
Like 300 million, 400 million, 500 million.
Yep.
I mean, it's like, it's more than their Marvel is spending on their fucking, movies half the time.
Seriously.
And, back in the day, you'd sell a game for $60 in a jewel case on GameStop shelves. You'd have to pay, part of the cost was actually making, printing the fucking discs, burning the discs, packaging them, shipping them, right? Like massive costs. Now everything's fucking digital.
Yep.
But this whole idea of we spend all this money, we need to get our money back. That's why you end up with either the company releases the same game 16 times, or they do microtransactions, or they have monthly fees, or they do DLC, or whatever. Sure. I mean, like, it's just something I think a lot of us are gonna have to.
The budgets are getting so insane that for any sort of return on investment, there has to be. And here's the thing: I don't even say that in a negative light of like GTA 5. Isn't the goal of these games, like, it's funny how on one hand you have people like Call of Duty. Right, like Call of Duty is kind of like is the other extreme where it's like, do we want to be paying $70 for the like DLC update for this game every year? Or on the flip side, do you want, like, they obviously created a world that's engaging enough for players to have wanted to participate in for 10 years. So like, I'd rather that, you know what I mean? Like you watch the game now and it's not Red Dead Redemption 2 as far as graphics, but it doesn't look terrible. It doesn't look like what I think a PS3 game would look like, right? It doesn't look like what I think an Xbox 360 game would look like. Now, does that mean that, I'm sure they've sold their fair share of DLCs and, XYZ or whatever, but it's like, if anything, it's almost a testament to like, they gave, because some of the stuff that you do in RP, like in the RP servers, is pretty crazy. So it's like they built this sandbox that people wanted to play in, and 10 years later, people are still playing it. That's actually kind of dope. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see what they go to next. You know what I mean? And like what the expectation will be from the player,
Yeah. That kind of brings me to a conversation that, I don't know, might be worth spending a couple minutes on, because it's something that I've just been like thinking about recently. The whole idea of microtransactions. So this is one of those things where I feel like there's valid concerns, there's realistic complaints, and then as a result, you end up with like criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a result, that criticism just becomes like the de facto standard kind of meme that is the reaction.
Yeah.
And then I feel like forever from then on, the original like criticisms are lost.
Yeah.
Like you have all those gacha games and all the games that have like microtransactions, and really what's the core issue? One of the biggest core issues is a lot of times they exploit kids spending money.
Yeah.
which is like a whole other thing. And I feel like that's like what a lot of people who argue against microtransactions, and I'm in all of this, I'm not saying I like microtransactions.
No, yeah.
The people that argue against microtransactions stand behind that as like I'm upset for a noble reason. We don't want to exploit the kids. When in reality, I just genuinely don't think that these random Reddit, Twitter, antisocial weirdos, a lot of them, right? The types that like just harass people online, or they're not upset with microtransactions because they feel like they're exploitative.
Yeah.
Like that's not why. It's like something else. And I feel like it's just because it's almost just anti-corporate, fuck you, you're not supposed to make money, or it's because they want the stuff.
Yeah, and don't want to pay for it.
Don't want to pay for it.
Well, I think
but then at the same time, they complain. Like, why do people complain about Diablo's store? Why do they complain about an ugly thing being $20? If it's ugly and if it's useless, then nobody will buy it. Why are you upset? I think you're upset because you want it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're actually considering spending the money on it.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things that like a lot of the things we've talked about is completely just like a cluster of 8 or 9 different issues or non-issues that get smashed together into one thing. You know what I mean? Because it's like you have things like, you know, the Fortnite Battle Pass and cosmetic store where like the game is free. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have things like the Diablo Immortal, like the mobile game, that scandal, where like those weren't exploitative towards kids. Those were just like exploitative towards the players. Like you could basically not play the game unless you were spending money. It was crazy. And then you have a bunch of the stuff that happened with EA with like the loot boxes and like how close that was getting to just like gambling, and people were spending just so much money trying to get something that they were never going to get. And you have all these different things, and it's all smashed into one conversation a lot of times. And then you have a varying degree to each of those things. Some people didn't think Diablo Immortal was a big deal. Some people thought it was a really big deal. Some people have absolutely no problem with Fortnite Battle Pass. Some people have a huge, and then all these people get into a room and start arguing this thing, and it's like such a cluster. And then you brought this up, and I think there is a subset of people these days that are just basically F corporations. I don't want them to make any money, which is complicated because some of them, you know, some dev teams work really hard. Some dev teams are really exploitative. You know, I think I actually saw this story. Somebody put it in chat, but like Epic just laid off a bunch of people. Like Epic Games just laid off like 800 of their staff. But then like their CEO is like record bonuses in his pocket at the end of the year.
And see, but so that's an interesting thing is that like
don't always correlate, but it conflates the opinion of a lot of people.
Yeah. So we like you saying that. Let's have the discussion about, well, what are people upset about? They lay off people and the CEO makes a bunch of money. Okay, that's not a gaming thing. That's just a capitalism thing,
for
right?
Sure.
Well, so microtransactions is completely independent of that.
Yeah.
Except you could almost, there's an argument to be made where, well, if they leaned into microtransactions more, they'd have more money to keep. They wouldn't have to lay these people off. Now, what people would say was, well, why don't they just have the CEO make less money? Well, then it's like, why did you bring it up in the context of microtransactions then?
Yeah,
because what we're talking about is, you know, so.
And I agree. I agree. I don't think, and I don't think others, and including myself, often walk that logic all the way through. 50% because we don't want to, and 50% because we couldn't, right? Like to really have that conversation, we would have to know what's going on at Epic Games. How many people were these people working on projects that were canceled? Were they laid off because, you know what I mean? Like, why were they, like, we really have to get into that. It's just one of those things where it just hits people a certain way of just like, how, you know what I mean? Like they make, you know, you look at their profit is, you know, public, where it's like, you know, a $9 billion of profit or whatever it is. And this guy's making this much money, and then these people get laid off. And so, and it's just a adjacent tangential thing that to what really makes me mad, which is the microtransactions. And like you said, sometimes just because I want it and I don't want to spend the money, sometimes because I had a really bad experience in this game. I think that's a big thing too, is people had really bad experiences with microtransactions in the games that were really exploitative, and just associate other microtransaction stores. You know, there have been quite a few smaller games by smaller dev teams that the games were free to play that I had no problem buying the battle pass.
Exile.
Or you know what I mean, or buying a cosmetic because, you know, whatever. And so I think some people bring that into the equation, you know, subconsciously. Yep. Some people aren't even aware that that's what they're bringing into the conversation. And it's also... No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to kind of skirt to another direction, so go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I just feel like these days, every developer that's going to come out with a game, that's announcing a game, that's putting a game in alpha or beta, they're like, oh, no microtransactions. There's not many microtransactions.
Yeah.
Everybody has to make that so, and that's good. While at the same time, I feel like there are games where there are going to be games where I wish there was more content that I could pay extra for.
Yeah.
Red Dead Redemption 2, if I finish the game and I want to play more, if there was additional DLC or, you know, like however many cosmetics they have in the game right now. They have a million different outfits and whatever.
Yeah.
It's not worth it for them to design more hats for my character, right?
Yeah.
But it would be if they charged.
Yeah.
So what if I want more hats?
Yeah.
You know, but so it's like not the craziest thing where all of a sudden if they announced that they were going to release more hats and more clothes, right? Yeah. Because of Red Dead, a lot of people would be a big L for Rockstar.
Yeah.
You know, because they're just milking blah, blah, blah. But it's like, now I'm going under the assumption here that there are markets for these things.
Yeah.
And that's why they're doing it. Because if there's not a market, then there's not a problem.
For sure.
Then they're just wasting their time spending development resources making stuff they're going to charge for that no one's going to buy.
Nobody wants, yeah.
So it's like, I just personally don't give a fuck what companies do as long as they're not exploiting kids or getting around gambling laws.
Yeah. And the only other thing there is, in general, I think, like, pay to win with multiplayer games, which isn't, I mean, you can make an argument that exploited, but isn't necessarily exploiting kids or targeted at exploiting kids, and it's not gambling. I think, like, that was the Diablo Immortal thing. Like, it definitely wasn't a kid's game, but it was just like you could pay to do everything. Everything was quicker, everything was more, everything. And the not only could you just get through the content faster, but the non-paid content was intentionally just like really slow and grindy to an extreme. Yeah. And so I think that's the other thing. I do think that the opinion is slowly shifting towards like people being more okay with cosmetic only pay to wins. Like, I've seen a lot of games basically put that forward. Like, we're going to have not cosmetic only pay to wins, cosmetic only microtransactions. I don't know why I said pay to wins there. I've seen a lot of games like New World did that. Like, they announced pretty early they were going to have a cash shop, but they were like, it's just going to be for cosmetics. You know what I mean?
I don't know, but Diablo 4 still gets raked over the coals every single day. Every single day and one of the craziest things is how many people, all these videos out there, so many people criticize and they all say the same thing. How much Diablo 4 is pushing their store. I literally never, I went to their store like once, and only because somebody mentioned it to me,
it's not like a little shopping bag notification in the top right of your screen all the time. Like,
if it is, I never noticed it.
Yeah.
But even so, like, whenever I went there, it was like their worst skins.
Yeah.
And sure, it was like for 1,600 silver pieces that cost you $19.99.
Yeah.
You could end up with, you know, some random thing. But it's like, what? It doesn't upset me.
I feel you.
I can't figure out why that would like upset people.
Yeah. It's too many people with too many opinions on too many variables all smashed into one conversation for it to ever become, you know, coherent.
They're all on the same side.
Yes. But it's that thing we talk about all the time where we're all willing to lock arms if there's a common enemy. But then if you started talking about anything, you'd be like, oh my God, I don't agree with you on anything. Adjacent, when you were talking about like, making their money back and like these budgets for games, how many, I don't know how true this is. I literally just Googled it, but I have seen several articles. If you were to guess how many copies of Grand Theft Auto 5 have been sold, 10 years, obviously 3 console generations. How many copies of Grand Theft Auto 5 do you think have been sold?
I don't even know if I'm in the right universe, but I want to say like 50 million.
185 million copies sold. Which, if you average
for
to
how much each?
$50 game, is $9.2 billion. That's not any microtransactions or DLCs. I don't think are included in this. Dude,
God damn.
I know. I was like, what?
Holy
185 million copies as of August 2023. The best selling, it says one of the best selling video games of all time. What the hell is?
I mean, Skyrim was... it sold 60 million units. Best selling games of all time. List of best selling. Minecraft, number 1. Actually, I don't know if these are in order. Oh, I think they are in order. Minecraft, GTA 5, fucking Tetris. I don't think I've ever played a full game of Tetris in my entire life.
I played a bunch of Tetris.
Wii Sports. Wii Sports is a banger.
Wii Sports? I loved Wii Sports.
PUBG, number 5. Mario Kart 8. Excuse me?
That's insane. That's
Nintendo power. 64 million on the fucking Wii U / Switch. Red Dead Redemption 2, Super Mario Brothers, Overwatch, The Witcher 3, Tetris, another version of Tetris, Pokemon Red, Green, Blue, Yellow. Yeah, boy. 96 was such a banger of a year for video games. Ocarina of Time and Pokemon fucking Red, Blue, Yellow, Green.
Grand Theft Auto came out in 2015 or 2014, and the year it came out was obviously its best-selling year. Its second best-selling year was 2020.
7 years. It came out in 2013.
Insane?
7 years. I wonder if that was just a resurgence from like streamers doing RP.
Probably. I really think so. Probably a big update. That might have been like a new console generation, a big like update to the game, and then like a bunch of streamers hopping into some RP. Isn't that insane?
God
insane. So they've definitely made their money back. A couple of Billy.
238 million copies of Minecraft.
That's insane.
To 250 million copies sold.
250 million copies. That's wild.
Now, granted, it's $30 a pop. I mean, yeah, you're talking
still
7 billion. Fucking Notch. That's why Notch is like paying for people's lawsuits, like random YouTubers lawsuits.
yeah.
Because my man,
bro, 250 million copies sold.
I wonder how many people worked on like at Mojang. How many people? Many? Can you spell many for me? Because apparently my fingers can't. People work on Minecraft. Okay, as of 2021, it employs 600 people. But
that's wild.
But this came out in 9 years before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. How many people should be working on Minecraft? Okay, well, Google, you're failing me. Oh my God! Speaking of this total random thought about Google failing me. One Peg tweeted something recently having to do with like whatever, like the Bing AI, Google AI,
okay.
whatever the
Yeah.
fuck. And he was like, "This is what it says about me." Um, he like, Googled his name and this
Yeah.
new AI, and I'm like, So I did it for me, and one of the things it said was that I'm a software engineer actively working on Escape from Tarkov, and I also worked on Starfield. It's like,
oh, yikes.
Oh God,
AI ain't taken over yet, boys.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet.
We're not there yet. That's crazy. Star Citizen will probably be the first game to make $1 billion before there's ever a game.
Oh my God. In early access.
1 billion before beta.
How much are some of those like the big ships? Like whenever they have like the free weekend or whatever, and I go in and I just like look at the big ships that like, I mean, in the coolest fucking vehicles of any video game I've seen, honestly. But aren't they like thousands of dollars?
Yeah, there's a few that are like $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 for the one ship. And
God, that's so wild.
Dude, you know what's funny about that though is like there's a full-blown economy and like gray market about that. I read an article like 5 years ago. 5 years ago where a guy's like how I paid off my student loans and bought a car playing the Star Citizen gray market. Like it's insane because like they do it like those $5,000 ships that they sell only at specific times in the year when they do those free fly weekends, they only sell a certain amount of them. Like 20. So they sell out in a femtosecond. And then most of the time, half of those guys just sell them on the gray market.
So is it like the new Corvettes cost like $60,000 more than sticker price because there's just more people that
It's crazy. And then like so you can it's called like the Legatus pack, I think. If you've spent a certain amount of money on the game, you unlock the ability to buy like a $10,000 package that includes like almost every single ship in the game that they've ever released, which most of those ships that have been for sale have not been released into the game. Dude, listen, it's just, you don't think too much about it. But they've raised almost $700 million total. And it's like,
do we know how many people are working on that? Oh yeah, wait, didn't they
like 800 or 900?
Oh my God! I vaguely recall like a year ago us talking about how like a bunch of their developers are working on some other terrible project that like no one gives a fuck about.
Yes. So Squadron 42, which is the single player game that basically when you beat it, it's like it releases you into the MMO. Like but then they were like, you don't have to, so you can buy the MMO or you can buy Squadron 42 or you can buy both. And like something like 80 to 90% of all the developers that are working on Star Citizen are working on Squadron 42. And that's not playable. Nobody's seen anything about it in like years. It's like, it's a meme. And it's like, so the game that everyone's playing is like on life support as far as like the amount of people developing it. I'm sure some Star Citizen fanboy and some Star Citizen hater are both going to tell me how wrong I am about these details in the comments. But yeah, so that's what's going on over there. But yeah, they've literally made over like almost $700 million dues. But yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, according to the website, as a new customer, the most expensive pack I can get is $1,100. Yes, the more you spend, the more they allow you to spend. You can't buy the $10,000 pack until you've spent like $1,000. It's like, it's wild, dude. It's wild. But I still play it and I still love it and I still hate it at the same time. Kind of like Tarkov. So there really isn't a whole lot going on in the Tarkov world again. We are just
I'm excited for TwitchCon.
Moseying along. The big thing is, however, yes. I don't know. I don't think we talked about this last time. I don't know if they had announced it, but Battlestate Games is officially coming to TwitchCon to show off the arena. So it's been like confirmed a few things, like it's not just private sessions. Like anybody that's at TwitchCon will be able to walk up to the booth and play arena. I'm sure a line will form, and I'm sure, you know, some of you will get turned away if there's too many people, but it's like, this isn't like a private thing where only streamers or only content creators, like you will be able to walk up to the booth and play arena. And so
now the question is, will I be able to walk up to the booth and cut the line because I have a streamer item? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
The answer is absolutely no, because I don't play Tarkov anymore. You don't play. I'm actually like mentally prepared for the whole like, oh, you're just like I'm being an opportunist by like wanting to.
Yeah, the game you devoted so much of your life to is having a major update and be like, oh, just trying to cloud chase the drama in Tarkov. Yeah.
I'm like genuinely just excited to meet some of the devs.
Oh,
like,
for sure. Very excited.
Like as much as I criticize Nikita and criticize the development of the game, like at the end of the day, it's all human beings, and
and we wouldn't have anything to criticize without these guys. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we obviously love this game, and even if we don't always love it, you know what I mean? So very excited.
I'm interested to see, like, I want to know like how tall Nikita is. Because I feel like he's either 5'2" or 6'8". I'm not sure.
Yeah. Dude, and
he's probably just gonna be like.
He's been looking good, man. His haircuts. I saw all the videos of him at like Gamescom and stuff. Like, he's a fly looking dude, bro.
I think he. Okay, well, you simping for Nikita?
I am, bro. Yeah, I'm a Tarkov.
He looks like he's been getting healthy.
Bro. So. Very excited for that. Very excited to meet the devs. Very excited to play Arena. So the other interesting thing in that was like they put out like a statement saying that they're coming to TwitchCon. Dude. So it's October 5th, okay? And they said all visitors will have the opportunity to try to escape from Tarkov Arena before the start of the closed beta test in the fourth quarter of 2023. So it's still like interesting things there. Like they calling it a closed beta test gives me a little bit of hope that they're going to release it before a wipe as opposed to alongside a wipe. Because I just really want them to not release it alongside a wipe. And the other thing was just like if there was any potential for it to have to get pushed, I feel like they wouldn't have doubled down on the like Q4 2023. You know what I mean? So still feels like they're ripping it. I'm coping so hard that it's like a few weeks after TwitchCon, you know what I mean? Maybe like late October, early November. They release it. We get to beta test it for a few weeks or a month or two, and then the next wipe happens, and it would just be perfect. But we'll see.
I have like genuinely no idea how I'll feel playing it. Like if it's good, if it's bad, I have no.
Yeah.
I've been away for so long, dude. It's like,
dude, I want it to be good so bad. Oh, just like, I think it'll be good. Like, all it really has to do to be like worth playing to me is like make it quick to get into another match. You know what I mean? Like, because the nature of it is that you're not like losing the gear in your stash. There is a currency to it, but you'll always, I don't think you'll ever be going into Arena with nothing but a hatchet. Maybe, but so it feels almost like the Dark and Darker where even if you're down bad in Arena, there's always a kit to have.
Yeah.
And the audio might be scuffed, the netcode might be scuffed, but those things hurt because of how much of our time it eats to get back into another raid and because of how much our actual like economy it ate. Now, here, I'm not defending. If the audio is scuffed and the netcode is scuffed, I will be depressed. Like, I will be really sad. But I think I'm saying it will still be fun to play as long as I can just get into another match quick. If it's like 1 minute and I'm in another match, then it'll probably just be like a super easy turn your brain off and have fun.
It's gonna be like $30 or something, right?
Yeah, I think
like
it's $30. Yeah,
standalone. I was just gonna say, like, if people play Tarkov, like the new advice that I'm gonna have for anybody who's like, I'm getting into Tarkov, like, what advice you have? I would say just play Arena.
Yeah, honestly,
like, because that's gonna be better, most likely.
Yeah.
Than going in and playing Factory. Like,
yeah,
the reason why my advice was, play Factory, do this, is because it was basically as close as you could get to.
That's so true.
Arena would
it's
be.
hard because I don't want to tell people that, like, if they're thinking about getting into Tarkov, to buy EOD. But if you like Tarkov, EOD just has a crazy value proposition now, because if you enjoy Tarkov, you get the biggest stash, you get the biggest container, you get the trader rep, you get the extra stuff, and you get the $30 game. But that's so true. Think about how different your first raid would have been if you had 5 hours of time in Arena. Like, just understanding how the movement works, how the gunplay works, how the healing system works, even just on a cursory level. Think about how much different your first few raids would have gone. Do you know what I mean?
Let me pose something to you, though.
Pose me.
Think about how different that experience would have been with the lady in the swamp if I had seen it already and experienced it already.
Yeah.
I feel like...
That's true. I guess that's a good point.
I feel like the
petrified fear...
when I think about the formative Tarkov days, right? The old days. Now, a lot of it was me being totally green, totally new to the game, but also Tarkov, the game itself, being different. But we're not going to change the second part, but we can potentially have an effect on people's initial experience with the game.
True.
And there's something, I almost feel like that. What made Tarkov special would potentially be lost. I don't know. I could be wrong. I might just be nostalgia.
There's definitely something there, which almost reminds me of, like, as opposed to telling people to rock Arena, upon release, Nikita recently talked about, like, the map that's only for level 1 to 15 players. That'll kind of be like a bridge the gap, best of both worlds. You'll be in there with other players. Everything will be as meaningful, but it'll be a place where you're not going to get, giga stuff. Me, Velian, and Blazed, just like we're playing yesterday, trioing, because, like, at this point in the wipe, we're just, like, hanging out. You know what I mean? It's like, imagine somebody starts yesterday and you see the three of us running around the corner. You know what I mean? So it's like, that'll almost be kind of that middle ground where there's, like, a place to explore and accept what Tarkov is without that, because you're right. You didn't have that back in the day. Even when I started, which was way after you, I didn't really have that.
Yeah, I mean, like, thinking back to my first days of playing, I mean, you could probably check this by watching my OG videos. But, like, running into a 3-man that had optics never happened for at least a year.
Yeah.
Like literally, it just never happened. It was almost always people playing solos, sometimes duos, and the best they'd have was an AK-74 with a rubber pad and a PSO. So even when you're in woods, when you're in customs, it's just a different game.
Yeah.
Like, I was never getting just one tapped from somewhere where I never saw.
For sure.
It was those, like, oh my god, I get jump scared by scavs hanging out over by like the garages and customs, or I don't know, like Tarkov.
No, I know. Tower sent me a clip of a fight that he got into on Shoreline in, I think, 0.8 or 0.7, and it, like, was hilarious and also made me depressed. Like, the amount of things I saw, like, Tower probably got shot 11 times during that fight. And because he didn't have a cam, Tower stands up from a prone and has full stamina to, like, run and, like, try and, like, flank this dude. The firefight lasted, like, a full minute. I mean, they were both potatoing, but it was just, like, I was like, oh, man, it was crazy. It was
you just don't get that when you've got meta gear and people who have 10,000 raids. Now, again, that's not to say that those things shouldn't exist or whatever, but
absolutely, yeah.
It's just like I can't help but feel like Arena is going to potentially remove just another little chunk of the heart and soul of Tarkov.
Yeah.
What little I feel like remains. But I'm not a new player today.
For sure.
So I can't know if I could, the Men in Black, but the fucking little thing.
Yeah.
Wipes my brain and I play Tarkov today. I don't know if my experience would be remotely close. Something tells me it wouldn't be.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that like we can't say what it's like for a new player today because we're not a new player today. We can comment on some of the things we didn't have. Like you said, a month into the wipe, 4 weeks into a wipe, you didn't have, 5 mans of people with like, voodoos on their guns. You didn't have that. You definitely have that now, but that doesn't inherently mean that the new player experience is, completely different. But all we can do is talk about what our new player experience was like and then comment on how some of the things have changed now. I mean, yeah, this wipe surprised me. So like I told you before, like last wipe was far and away the wipe I made the most money. I had never had 100 million rubles in Tarkov before. Last wipe was the longest wipe ever, but last wipe I made 100 million rubles, bought like 3 thick items cases, worked my way back to 100 million rubles. Irish Asian wiped my account. I literally deleted everything in my stash except for my hatchet. And by the end of the wipe, I had 120 million rubles. So like last wipe was the wipe I made the most money ever. And this wipe, I was surprised at how fast I was making money. Like 1 month into the wipe, I had 50 million rubles. It was crazy. I was like, what the hell? I was like, where's this money coming from? And so like there definitely are differences, right? Like my first wipe, I played the game. I never had 1 million rubles at any point in the wipe. I never had 1 million rubles. That was 0.9, but like it was crazy. So,
and when I started, there was nothing to spend it on.
Yeah.
So it's
like
irrelevant.
5 guns. You know what I mean? Yeah. So once again, and I'm not saying I'm not talking about this like it was better back in my day. Like the game is a lot better now, and a lot of people say a lot worse or whatever. It's like it just is. I'm not saying anything other than it just is, and it was just interesting to see Tower in that fight. Tower had a folded suppressed DVL with a voodoo on it in his Epsilon container. And he was running around with a pistol. I was like, oh, dude, it's so funny, bro. Oh, it's so funny. So yeah, it's like I can't speak to what it's like to be a new player now because right now I have 7,000 hours in the game. So it's like it is what it is. I'd be interested to hear. But this came from like I think it'll be cool to have a place where only level 15 and below can be, because this game incentivizes you so much to progress and to like have the money and have the thing. You know what I mean? Like because it's such a driven game based on like level and quest, and I want to get elite strength and elite endurance that I don't think. I mean, I'm sure people are going to smurf, whatever, create new accounts, but it's like I don't know how bad it's going to be.
I think, I mean, smurfing costs a lot of money in a game like Tarkov.
Yes,
but what I think is going to be far more common than smurfing is going to be the cheater that just made a new account that just got banned by level 17. They're now just going to do more, whatever, and that could be
the only interesting thing there will be because it's only going to be one location, and I'll be interested. I don't think that one location for people only below level 15 will have like lead X's like all over the place in Bitcoin. You know what I mean? So like even if you're a cheater and you created a new account, you're probably going labs or streets as a level 1. You know what I mean? So
good point.
We'll see. We'll see. But it could be a really cool place for new players to get the experience of Tarkov without some of the just slam dunking that happens now. Another interesting conversation to bring up, but before we do, I want to take a second and thank the sponsor for today's episode, and that is Factor Meals. With busy fall season already in swing, you might be looking for convenient meals for jam-packed days. Factor is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. It can help you fuel up fast for breakfast, lunch, or dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. We've worked with Factor for a while. It's great. Ready to eat being the key words there. It's super nice being able to just heat something up and have it be ready to go. A full meal. I don't have to make something, spend 30 minutes off stream. I don't have to figure out what I have. I just end up eating 7-day-old pizza or Hot Pockets when I'm left to my own devices. So it's super nice to have like a meal, a proper meal.
Yeah, I can skip the ramen and SpaghettiOs and in exactly the same amount of time, and literally 2 minutes.
Yeah,
can have the fucking, what was it? The apple Dijon pork chops.
Bruh.
I haven't had pork chops in forever, man. That
yeah.
Oof.
That's the thing, is like there's so much food that you just get into like a rhythm of like the stuff we like to make. You know, we like to make tacos or we like to make pizza or whatever. And then with this, you're like, pork chops? Hell yeah. Like I'm not going to go buy pork chops. I don't know how to make pork chops, but here they are and they're delicious and it's variety. It's great. So there's 35 plus weekly meals. So you never feel like you're pigeonholed into just a few things. And once again, they do, they'll like go with like the season. So this fall, they have some limited time things like the apple Dijon pork chops, cranberry pecan chicken. Oh my God. All sorts of stuff ready in just 2 minutes. And then once again, the convenience factor of being able to like kind of get whatever you want. Do you want more protein heavy meals? Do you want more keto friendly meals? You can, there's all sorts of meals that are 550 calories or less per serving.
Bro, they got breakfast
whatever
stuff?
You want. Yes, dude.
Oh my God, apple cinnamon pancakes. Okay, I'm okay. Well,
Okay.
now I know what I'm ordering next time is breakfast stuff. I'm a simp for breakfast food.
That's another, dude. Cheddar egg bites, potato, bacon, egg breakfast skillet. Come on. So that's another thing to the convenience too, is that it can be whatever meal is the easiest, like the meal, like lunch. Lunch is the meal for me where I have the most trouble because I'm streaming. I'll make dinner. So it's like whatever meal. If it's breakfast before you go to work, boom, you can do breakfast items. If it's dinner, boom. So it's awesome. Factor's great. So you can head to factormeals.com/Pogcast50 and use code Pogcast50 to get 50% off. That is code Pogcast50 at factormeals.com/Pogcast50 to get 50% off. Thank you so much, Factor, for sponsoring this episode. Apple Dijon.
I want fucking pancakes.
Pancakes. So the other like Tarkov related thing, and this is nothing but, to all you viewers out there, just a friendly discussion. Okay, there's been Tarkov Twitter is a dumpster fire recently, and I'm not calling anybody out, but I don't want this to be it's interesting topics that we pull out of the dumpster fire sometimes, and because generally sometimes there are interesting things to talk about. So this is just a conversation. But something that has been talked about a lot, not just recently. Some people talk about it a lot, frequently, and that's okay. Like, is like the found and raid system, and just like for some reason the past like week there was just like a convergence of a lot of people discussing some legitimate, like really actual civil discussion, some other discussion about like the system and stuff like that. And so I
was scrolling and I came across this in my feed, was scrolling, and all of a sudden I saw my diagram that I had made.
Posted it, I think, and
he didn't tag me in it. So I was just scrolling, and all of a sudden I was like, hey, that's my thing. That's how I know about the conversation.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I figured this would be a good conversation because I have lots of thoughts, and this is my podcast, so I can talk about it. B, you don't play Tarkov much recently, so you don't have like a side, right? Like skin in the game where you're like, whatever. And the other reason why I thought this would be an interesting conversation is because we have both frequently criticized this system. You know what I mean? Like, the found and raid system is scuffed. I've said that for a long time. You've said that for a long time. You made the diagram, which was incredible. But but here's the context, though, is the best I can tell from reading a lot of the stuff, the two reasons this is being brought up, because there's the system is scuffed, which is we've talked about a lot, but the reason it's being brought up as we should remove the found and raid system has been through two lenses that I think overlap a lot of the time. But the best I could tell from reading a lot of this stuff was, one, a group of people want to make PvP in Tarkov more profitable because you can't make a whole lot of money PvPing, and you can make a whole lot of money doing something else. You know what I mean? So it's like, let's make PvP more profitable. If we could sell gear on the flea market, then that much more incentivizes you to like take out player gear as opposed to just ditching it for, trinkets and items. And then the other reason is I think there's some people out there that think that found and raid. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. And once again, I'm not. Oh yeah, this is the beautiful system. Actually, yeah, before let's go through this for the audio listeners. What is found in raid? All right. From a trader? Well, what from a trader? Was it a quest reward? Yes, it's found in raid. Is it purchase from a trader? No, it's not found in raid. Is it insurance return from a trader? No, it's not found in raid. Is it a starting item? Not found in raid. Bought off the flea? Not found in raid. Twitch drop? Not found in raid. Did you find it in raid? Hold on, let me see. Did you find it in raid? If so, from a PMC? Not found in raid. Did you extract with the item? Did you survive? Did you get 200 XP? Or did you spend 7 or more minutes in the raid?
Yeah, that was the run through. Now, keep in mind, this is like
if so,
3 years old, so I don't know how many of these things
If so, it's found in raid. If any of those things don't happen, i.e. you found an item in raid but didn't survive, it's not found in raid. You found an item in raid and survived but didn't get 200 XP or didn't 7 minutes, now you have a run through, it's not found in raid. And if you brought the item into the raid, it's not found in raid. It is found in raid if it's crafted in the hideout.
Yeah, there's three arrows pointing. So okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's like 9 arrows pointing to not found in raid.
Yeah.
And there's 3 arrows pointing to found in raid.
Yeah.
One of the things that you can found in raid, you got as a quest reward. Another that you found in raid was crafted. And then the remaining thing found in raid is a subset of 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 items you actually found in raid. Gotta love it, dude.
Yeah. So that's the diagram. So what I was saying was the two contexts that this kind of was bringing up of like the conversation of should we remove the found and raid system was, one, can we make PvP more profitable? And two, I don't want to put words in people's mouth and I don't want to misrepresent people's opinions, but I think some people think it's made RMT worse, and therefore made cheating worse, kind of through the lens of like, because the game is more confusing and arbitrary and hard to then like acquire good gear because of all like we said, how kind of like weird the economy and the system is, that more people resort to just paying for gear as opposed to engaging with that system, which ends up kind of pseudo driving cheating as opposed to pulling it down. I think that's the thought process there. So it's an interesting conversation for sure. My kind of thoughts on it is that it's just like my overall 10,000 foot view thoughts on it is just that like Tarkov is almost too far gone for me to think that just doing a thing would have that big of an effect on a bunch of things. Like found and raid system was added, and then on top of that, we had a bunch of other things. Like the economy was tuned in a way that so that found and raid was there. The additional RMT restrictions on what can be traded and what can't be traded. And so my concern there would be like, if we just deleted the found and raid mechanic, you can sell everything on the flea now, that so many other things adjacent to it would just like crumble. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, Like,
but that doesn't mean I think the system is good.
Yeah, I mean, like they there's a million ways that we've talked about. I've proposed, other people have proposed that are like solutions to this problem.
Yeah.
Like if I had the magic wand right now, granted I haven't thought about this a lot recently, so tell me if you think of anything off the cuff. But if you actually restricted what you could buy and sell properly on the flea market, like ammo, guns, like the civilian flea, that kind of whole thing. And then just made everything you get in raid you can turn in for quests.
Yeah.
And then if the items you needed for quests were I guess it kind of depends on the kind of quest, but like if the items that you needed to turn in for quests weren't items that would make trivial to do the quest if you could just get them off of players, or exploit from your friends, then I feel like they could get rid of so many band-aids that they have, if they actually designed other systems right.
So if we're coming from the side of like make PvP, man, there's so much to talk about here. Holy cow, I don't even know where to go. I'm just going to start here. Like, it coming from the side of people saying, I want, PvP to be more rewarding. I completely agree with that sentiment. Now, there's a few ways to do it. Like, I think a lot of people would disagree with me, but so the balance is very skewed, and I think that's a bad thing. The balance is so, I've talked about this before, is so much more skewed to just like ignore everything and pick up little trinkets, moonshines, bitcoins, GP coins, gold skulls. Like these things are, you know what I mean? It's on, and you can fit all this stuff. You can get yourself a docs case and a sick case in an alpha container and a few 20,000 ruble keys, and you can shove intels in your butt, gold skull rings, GP coins, pro kills, diaries, slim diaries, bitcoins, all this, Veritas picks, all these just get hoovered up, and they are separate from the found and raid system because the trader price for them is so much. It's just like, it is truly unreal. So I definitely agree with the sentiment of the people who are like, yo, this balance is way off track. And if PvP was more rewarding, then maybe people would engage in it more because it would be a viable alternative to just running around. And I completely agree with that. Now, my whole thing with the economy is like, I would probably smush this other side down and a lot and then raise this up a little bit. Does that make sense? Like, I just hate how easy it is to just like make oodles and oodles and oodles of money. People are going to get mad at me for saying that.
Money shouldn't be as important also. Like, it really shouldn't be.
Yeah. But I don't even want to get in the weeds. I would actually just straight up right now accept as a temporary solution. And this is something I think Glorious and Landmark and a few other people have said, like, instead of removing the found and raid system and like, what all could come of that, is like you could just raise the purchase price from the traders for those things. If I find a Bitcoin, I sell for 400,000 rubles, right? If I take somebody's, Gen 4 assault out, which is 4x3, and it's busted, that sells for like 50,000 rubles. So like the ruble per slot value. But if you were going to buy a Gen 4 assault, the value from the trader is hundreds of thousands of rubles. So it's like a heavier item. So yeah, there's weight involved as far as like your strength and in your endurance level. There's how much space you can take out, and there's no value back to the trader.
Wait, so what's the ultimate goal of this again? Let me try to understand.
What do you mean? So the idea would be to just increase how much the traders buy gear for. Not to 100% of their value.
From players.
Yeah, from players. So if I kill you and I took your Gen 4 out, I could sell it to therapists for maybe 200,000 rubles, or to Ragman, as opposed to selling it for like 70,000 rubles.
So you want to promote people selling to traders rather than selling on the flea market?
Yes.
And the problem
that was the idea that we're like fleshing out. One of the ideas that was made by people on Twitter.
So but if you can get more for it on the, if you could.
Well, you can't really sell any gear on the flea right now, like those armors and stuff like that. There's not a whole lot of armors or guns you can sell on the flea.
So, okay. So it's not about. I might be being like obtuse. I guess I'm just trying to figure out what problem are you trying to solve? Too much money, too much metagear? Like what exactly are we trying to...
We're trying to solve the only way to be profitable in the game is to loot and ignore PvP.
I'm with you.
Yeah. No,
sorry.
No. We talked about a lot of things and we bounced around a lot and there's so much I want to talk about. Yeah.
And Twitch chat's talking about other stuff and I'm like, my brain,
but coming from that lens of like the only way to make money is to play one way. Loot, just get a bunch of keys, loot everything. Then you can afford, some people just only play that way. And some people then take that money and then go and, maybe engage in PvP or maybe quest or whatever. But it's just the only way to stay ahead, you know what I mean? And make money. And so to address that problem, it's not about, like I said, in this world, in this universe, it's not about, and this is the thing, people have a hard time saying this. Just because somebody else wants a cookie, that doesn't mean that they want to take your cookie, right? Well, I've been talking about this a lot on my stream recently. If there's only one way to do something and we want more than one way to do it, we're not saying your way should go away. So if we increase the trader prices that they bought gear from, you could still not PvP. You could still loot. You could still use your keys. It's just that these people wouldn't have to go loot to make money. They could just engage with the game the way they want to engage with the game and also have rewarded if you're good. It's arguably, it's more skill, right? Because like if you increase those prices, the person has to just be good at PvP to like cash in on those prices, right? So I don't think I say that I like that. I think that would be the things I'm looking for are nowadays are like simple solutions, not like, so that to me seems like a simple solution that would be beneficial.
There's another way to look at this that I think is worth thinking about, and it's the thing that Battle State and nobody ever does in these conversations, and it's why. It's the why.
Yeah.
Take one step back from where we are. We want PvP to be more lucrative.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to put myself in my shoes 2 years ago when I made videos talking all about this to remember why.
You used to say this a lot.
Well, because I never had any money.
You never had money because you didn't want to loot. You didn't want to just buy the keys and do loot runs. You didn't want to do money runs.
Yeah, but so a huge part of the problem there, though, is because that I actually don't think that making some of the making that gear more expensive.
Yeah.
I don't think that would necessarily solve. Part of it is because of just inflation, because people can print money by crafting bolts and selling whatever, right? Well, then that's why a stim is 80,000 rubles that lasts you 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Because people can only afford it because of that, which means that when you need it, you're just increasing the costs of everything in raid. Insurance, you're just flushing money down the drain, and half the time it's for nothing because you don't get your stuff back, or repairs are way too expensive, right?
Yeah.
So if you made insurance reasonable and you made repairs far more reasonable, then that, there's two sides of an equation.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people want to bring up one side up here, whereas sometimes it feels like the solution is to bring this side way down.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I was talking about earlier.
Because think about if I kill a bunch of dudes, right? And then I take out their slick armor and I take out their really nice meta gun. Well, I'm going to use those. I'm not going to sell them.
Yeah.
Because if I sell the armor, I get money, and then I go to buy, and because the prices are so much more from traders, then it's not worth it. It's it only makes sense for me to sell the slick and then go in naked, because otherwise I'm going to sell the slick and then buy something half as good for 90% of the price.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like,
I get that. I still think that it, like, once again, I think it would help with that makes sense. I think there's a lot of things, especially when you talk about like weapons and attachments and stuff like that, where I'm not a huge fan of the 308 MDR, but a lot of people are. Well, now maybe there's a reason to take that gun out, because that gun can sell for a decent amount. Armor, I think you're right, where there are so few really good armors that if you took out a really good armor, you probably don't want to sell that really good armor because you want to use that really good armor. But I think like attachments and guns and weapons and rigs, like, and stuff like that, and backpacks, those being more you would actually potentially bring those out for the value of them.
Those are the things I'm selling stuff to buy. I want to be able to buy a voodoo every raid.
Yeah.
And I have money for it. So if I loot a bunch of voodoos, I'm not going to sell them for money because I'll just be flushing money down the drain.
I know, but there's a lot more scopes in the game that you don't loot because you don't want them and they don't sell for anything. There's a lot of items in the game, and there's not a lot of meta items in the game. And so the only reason to take out...
So like making PSOs more expensive, you think like...
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, yeah. I don't know.
I think
it just...
Once again, this solution isn't it would fix the economy. This solution is the economy is so scuffed and so skewed towards just like run around with 30,000 ruble keys and loot trinkets until you're a trillionaire, that I do think that increasing the price of weapon attachments, weapons especially, because you kill so many scavs. Like, imagine killing a scav and he's got a busted up foul, but you're like, yo, foul sell for 180K. It would make you like the looting. This time you would spend looting would be corpses. You know what I mean? The things you killed, things other people killed. And there's a world where, once again, I don't think anyone thinks the solution fixes Tarkov. I think the conversation here is this a better solution to make PvP more profitable than removing Found in Raid?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree that.
Yeah.
It's just, you just have to think about the way economies work. And if you make PvP more profitable, more people have more money, which then means the price of things tends to go up. So it might all come out in the wash. If the price of 2 stims doubles, then you making the slick armor 3 times as much, I'm now making less money in PvP than I was before.
I see what you're saying.
There's a world in which that happens, and ultimately, like, you have to draw lines, see the supply and demand and the price to be able to figure out if you end up coming out on top or not after those changes. And I'm not saying you're wrong. Nobody
would know until you would do it and see how it affected things.
Yeah, like if suddenly you made dog tags worth 1 million rubles, a lot of people would say, oh, okay, every dog tag's worth 1 million, boom, PvP is now profitable. Well, it's like, no, because then, Zagustins would be 2 million rubles. You know what I mean? So it's like, it isn't that easy.
But the thing is, though, is that, so a few things to that. One, I don't think many more people would have that many more rubles. I think the people that PvP would just spend more time PvP and less time looting to get their rubles. You know what I mean? Like, they go on money runs to afford their PvP runs. They could just do PvP runs. They might end up with the same amount of cash on hand, but they can just spend their time doing what they enjoy. And secondly, the other thing to that is when you're talking about the inflation, you're not you, but like the assumption there is that everything is inflatable. But like,
it's only flea market things that are
inflatable. And that's,
I don't know how dynamic the trader prices are, but
I don't think they're dynamic right now.
I don't think
they've
they are
toyed with
either.
that in the past, but I don't think they are. That's really just stims. Like 60% of the ammos people want aren't purchasable on the flea. 70% of the armors people want aren't purchasable on the flea. Almost none of the guns people want are purchasable on the flea. Very few of the high tier attachments. Actually, a lot of the attachments are. So the attachments would get inflated. But The attachments, weirdly, the good attachments would only get inflated for the lower tier players because you can buy all the attachments at max traders. So for the sake of argument then, if PvP was more profitable, I do think I'd make more money because most of the things I'm buying, most of the armors, most of the guns, most of the attachments, I just buy from level 4 traders, and those prices don't change.
Yeah, but
it would inflate the economy for other people, yeah.
Nobody says or thinks JesseKazam should make more money in Tarkov, though.
No.
See, that's the thing, is that, like...
Once again, though, it's not about the ruble amount. It's about, is there more than one way to get to that ruble amount? Nobody, like, Glorious does not want more rubles. Landmark doesn't want more rubles in their account. They just want to be able to make the rubles that they have this way. And the hope is that that would also potentially incentivize some of the people that are on the edge. If you've got Chad and Rat, the people that are in the middle, some of those people might be incentivized to up their chops in PvP because they feel like that they can do that, and they lose a few raids, they win a few raids, and they're still maintaining ruble or maybe making some ruble, as opposed to I have a bad night and now I have no money. So those are the two things. It's not that I want more ruble. It's right now there's one way to make ruble. And if there was more than one way, then I wouldn't have to spend my time doing this other way. And hopefully some of the people would start pursuing that way. Like I said, I'm definitely not arguing that this is like the fix. You're totally right about the economy. And and this is why Tarkov is so complicated, because it would feel gross if I was like, oh, how much is a mule? 600,000 rubles? It's like, yeah, I can buy my attachments, but if a mule was 600,000 rubles, that would be super annoying. And there could be unintended side effects. Where where it continues the pull apart of the Chads and the Rats. The people in the middle might be incentivized to go PvP, but like the guy who, wants to keep an ETG in his sick case and it's now 1 million rubles, he's like, he might get more frustrated. But I think that we wouldn't be able to see those things until it was in the game and it was disseminated out. But from a 10,000 foot view, it was, the conversation started with like, we should just remove found and raid so that we can sell gear on the fleet and make PvP more profitable. And then other people were like, well, we can do that much more simply by just increasing the trader values, or like what the traders buy things for.
Yeah. And I guess like,
sorry.
The only reason why I'm like playing devil's advocate here is because these things are, they just feel more complicated than most people say. And what we're talking about here is a game that's covered in band-aids, and people are like, this band-aid's better than this band-aid. And I'm so fucking tired of hearing anything having to do with more band-aids. Why don't they just design the game coherently?
Now, listen,
and we don't need band-aids.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. I think this conversation came out of like, it was like, chop this arm off, and other people were like, well, what if we put this Band-Aid on instead? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like that's going to be a better thing. But I couldn't agree more with that sentiment of like, if the game just wasn't so riddled with Band-Aids, then it wouldn't be as big of a deal.
Yeah. I mean, when we've talked about the like 19-step process that the game would need to go through, where you propose one thing and then you see, oh, these other things change. Okay, well, then you need to fix some quests. All right, well, then you're going to need to fix the trader stock. Okay, well, then you're also going to need to fix what things are available to buy and sell in the flea market. Then you're also going to need to change how many things, like what things you can give to traders for quest item fulfillment, which means you're also going to need to change.
We have to come to an agreement that at this point, Tarkov is such a tangled mess that any good idea will almost always result in the entire game having to change. Any idea, and people reject ideas because they're like, well, if you did that, you'd have to change this. But it's like, but there's no idea that doesn't end that way. You can't do anything in this game without being like, okay, well, how does that affect these things? What do we do? But that's just peeling back the onion. And I'm not saying that every idea is worth going all the way down that thing for, but you're absolutely right, where it's just like, just because an idea then means other things may have to be affected, it doesn't immediately mean that's a bad idea. because Tarkov is such a tangled mess at this point that like, just has to.
And the last thing that comes to mind too is we can't treat the things on both sides of the equal sign as equal because you turn bolts into money and then money into gear and then gear into hopefully more money through whatever means.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. If gear, the thing that you use to play the game is worth more money, well, then it almost incentivizes just always going naked because I don't want to. If this armor is worth more in rubles than it is in survivability, so I'm just going to sell everything.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go in with like a mid-tier gun and no armor because armor and helmets and what it's swordins and no armor and a fucking
an SVT
Vepr and a Vepr with a dot on it.
Yeah.
And then now you kill people and no one has any armor.
Yeah.
And now you have no more, so it's like that's just another thing to keep in mind is that I really think that the price of gear from traders should come way down. Like the low and mid-tier gear should be like next to nothing.
I agree.
You shouldn't have to pay 70,000 rubles
for the rat rig, dude. Yeah.
For a tier 3, it's absurd. And that would incentivize more people bringing in gear. And when you bring in gear, you're incentivized to fight because why bring in gear if you're just going to fill your bag with bolts and you're trying to avoid PvP and you're just going to sit in a bush. So it's like people wouldn't feel so punished from investing in things because they're, so it's like you change the investment.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what I was saying. If it's costs much less to go into a raid, well, then you don't need to make as much money. And that actually doesn't affect how people are going to act in the same way necessarily in raids. When you make my insurance cost next to nothing and repairing my armor next to nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm all over the place. I can't even agree with myself. I'm not sure.
But I don't think that that's an unreasonable place to be, where like I do that all the time, where I say a thing and before I can even let chat tell me what the hole in my idea was, I see it and then and it's such a cluster. It's such a cluster. And you hit a really important nail on the head, which is like, you know what nobody talks about? What are we trying to do?
Yeah, what's the goal here? Let's take a step back.
What are we trying to incentivize? Because that's something that like and
it's not about more money.
Correct.
The conversation is not about more money.
No.
It's about players
what is the game?
The gameplay loop.
Can people engage with it and enjoy it? And that you should be able to extract camp. You should be able to loot run, but you should be able to PvP and quest and enjoy those things. And nobody really enjoys questing and nobody really enjoys PvP right now. So it's like, it's not about taking these away. It's about, can people engage? Now you said something that made a lot of sense where it's like, okay, we're talking about the price of the rat rig, the class 3 rig or whatever. It's such a ping pong back and forth. Like they add what treasure items were in the game in 2017? It was like
Bitcoin,
the gold chain and the chainlet and Bitcoin. And now there's the pro kill.
And the clock.
There's the pro kill. There's the golden skull ring. There's the GP coin. There's the Veritas guitar pick. There's so many more super valuable things. You can find stims, 30 to 100,000 rubles per. There's 11 different stims that are super valuable. 1 slaughters. There's all the diaries. There's the intel now. There's just such a tremendous amount of stuff.
The money run back in the day was hatchling into factory, run to the safe, loot the safe, and exit raid.
And just, alt F4, yeah. But the thing is, so going back to what you said, instead of balancing those things so they're about as rare, but just now there's more variety, everything just got its own spawn. And so now, everybody has so much money and the gear's cheap, so then they make the gear more expensive. And they add more items and we make more money and they make the gear more expensive. And it's like, Exactly. Like, how did we get here? And then you get this weird dichotomy where we talk about all the time. Tarkov is super easy to make money in, unless it's not. If you're new, Tarkov is the farthest thing from easy to make money in. And this divide is an unnecessary one. Like, if there just wasn't so much gold everywhere, people would have less money, which means you could bring the prices down of the low tier gear, and then that way you could freaking buy a pack every once in a while and some class 3 rigs, whether you knew how to make money or not. That was a whole diatribe just based on something that you said. Going back to the other thing, and I think this is a very important topic, which is, what do we think players will do, and what will players actually do? And this is where you talked about, just like, I'm not going to run anything. This is why, and I responded to somebody on Twitter about this because this is how the conversation's been going. Let's remove Found and Raid. The response to that is, if you remove Found and Raid, we're going to bring back the hatchling apocalypse. And then the response to that is, I don't care. Like, let's bring it. And so I actually respect that, like, if we think like that, maybe somebody could think that bringing back hatchlings was a worthy trade-off over what we have now. Like, I don't think that's an outrageous thing. But as long as people are considering what players will do, because it's really easy to think, because here it is, right? If Found and Raid was gone, then you might find a LEDX. And instead of thinking, oh my God, I need to get out with this LEDX because I need to sell it on the flea and make money, you might think, I got my money. I got the LEDX. Let me go engage in some PvP.
It's just oh, yeah.
That makes sense, right? But is that what happens? No! People go, I'm going to go in with nothing. I'm going to run to room 301. I'm going to unlock it, shove everything up my butt, and disconnect from the raid. Now, I'm not saying nobody does that, but I'm saying it's easy to think the players will do this. And what we've often seen is what I think the players will do, players won't do. You know what I mean? And it was the same thing. Somebody was saying earlier, what if we closed down the containers where you couldn't put anything in your container once you got into the raid? Right? Like, you could bring whatever you want into your container, but you can't put anything in. I've actually proposed that before because I think that's a good idea. But when I really think about it, I think that would make people rat more.
Not to mention the fact, I just always instantly cringe from those ideas because I just hate overcomplicating with arbitrary rules around, like, here are the things you can put in your case, here are the things you can't. Like,
well, that's why I think that's a better idea. Right now, there are some things you can put in your container and some things that you can't put in your container. If the rule was just you can't put anything in your container once you're in a raid, at least that's clearer. And once again, I at one point thought that I'm not even saying, here's the thing. I'm not saying that idea is a bad or a good idea. What I'm saying is, what I think would happen is that people wouldn't, because once again, the thought process there, this thought process makes sense, but I don't think it would be what would happen. The thought process is, dude, imagine killing a guy with a red card on him, or like he found a violet on woods and it's not up his butt and you killed him and it was whatever. But I just think that, like,
the flip side,
not even that, I think you
die with the red card.
Yeah. I just think it would be if somebody found the violet, they're proning in a bush until 2 minutes left in the raid. And then they run out. You know what I mean? Like, there's no so and then which also makes all the other bullshit, like cheaters and bugs and scavs and whatever, even more AIDS if you die to a cheater with a red card on. Yeah.
And then, like, not to mention too that when hatchlings were a problem, and it's not to say that, like, these things wouldn't cause hatchlings, or they would. Hatchlings were a problem at a different part it was 1892 when hatchlings were an issue, because there wasn't, like, the reason why they were hatchlings is because they thought they could squirrel their way to the spot, get in, grab the stuff, and get out, because there were less people playing, there were less spawns, there was just, like, you came across people on average far less.
Yeah.
The number of fights per hour was drastically less than before.
Yeah.
So, and then also what we're talking about with hatchlings is if you change the value of something,
yeah,
making it so that, let's say a hatchling is going to get a LEDX and they're going to sell it on the flea for 1 million rubles, or they're going to sell, or you could sell it to therapists for 200,000, or you could use it to craft a thing that was just then sellable on the flea market for whatever. When your costs are 0, 1 million rubles is great, and 200,000 rubles is still great.
Yeah.
There's no, you have to diminish the value of everything infinitely.
Yeah.
To the point where it fucks up everything to try to solve the problems around people who try to make money without risk.
Yeah.
If there's no risk, then it doesn't matter. It's all profit.
I do actually get what you're saying there, and kind of agree where, like, there's so many cheap guns that are just too good. And dude, you know what's crazy? You might have just you know what, dude? Don't say I won't change my mind. You may have completely changed my mind about hatchlings just now. Let me decompress. Let me decompress this. Okay. I was full on team, like, if you remove Found in Raid, you're just bringing the hatchling apocalypse back. Like, you're just bringing it back. It's just everyone's going to be a hatchling. But
it's impossible to survive a raid as a hatchling.
Yeah, let me decompress this.
Or get anything.
What you just said, which is true, which is that, but you didn't say this, but I'm going to say a lot of things that support what basically your idea, which is there are more treasure items in the game now, more treasure items in the game that are not locked behind high tier keys. So, like, you could go anywhere and find these things. There are more high tier treasure items in the game now that sell for almost identical to their flea market price. And there are more unbelievably cheap, unbelievably good weapons. So I actually think that if you removed Found in Raid, I don't think I don't think hatchet running would be worth it. I still think, yeah, you would bring a gun. Now, here's the thing, though. I do think we talked about this. Let me know what you think about this. We talked about here's Chad and here's Rat, right? I do think what you do is you incentivize more of the players towards the middle to bring less, though, to bring like less good gear and less like I think the player base skews more towards like I'm just like more people would just be rocking SVTs, more people would be going in with less because
how can you have more than everyone except for the Chads? Like hatchlings, you're just never gonna have like it. Okay, what Uneventful said earlier, I'd rather run into a hatchling than a naked dude with a Mosin. Like, yeah, because at least when I kill the guy, there's no chance of me dying.
Yeah.
And at least I get the 20,000 ruble dog tag rather than dying to the dude and getting a Mosin I'm not going to use, won't sell for anything, and a 20,000 ruble dog tag. And there's like a coin flip that I die to the guy.
Yeah.
The reason why hatchlings were a problem back in the day was because there were so few people playing. You would go into a factory raid and it would be 4 hatchlings and that would be every raid.
You could not even you could play for a proper 3 or 4 hours on any map you want, and some days not run into a guy with a gun. It was wild.
Yeah, and I just don't. There's the number of people playing and the availability of things. I just don't see hatchlings ever coming back.
No, I think that's a good point. I really think you convinced me on that point there. There's so many more treasure items. There's so many more stims, which not only give more things for the hatchling to like make money off of, but also give or all not the people to make money off of, but also give those people more of an advantage. Like the SJ6 and Trimadol wasn't around back then when the hatchlings were trying to get into Shoreline, you know what I mean, to get there before this. It was just, did you get Godspawn or not? Yes or no? That was the only question. So now here's the thing though, is that, so you have convinced me that I don't think hatchlings are coming back. Actually, I really think you have. But the thing is though, is the way this conversation started is more like, not, or the way that this part of this conversation started was going off of how do you incentivize engaging with the game? Like I don't think that, I think money runs is engaging with the game, but I don't necessarily think bringing in a hatchet and or just an SVT and nothing else and just like take 5 stims and then run through the map. I don't know that that's on the line for me where it's like you just have nothing. Like if you were doing money runs with a gear and shooting people that you came across, that's one thing. So it's like,
well, money runs aren't a problem. Don't forget, the problem isn't people. No one has a problem with someone else doing a money run. I care that I have to if I want to make money.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm fine if everybody in the map is doing money runs. Then it's going to be way easier for me to kill people and take their shit.
Yeah, I guess what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Money running isn't the problem.
Yeah.
It's the fact that money running is the best, most efficient way to play the game.
Yes. But that's kind of what I was getting at, which is like, how do you, here's the way I look at it. How do you incentivize people to climb the ladder? This is, I guess, the best way for me to explain it is like, at level 10, right? Like really early in the wipe, you can get, I don't know if it's level 10, whatever level 2 proper is. Take day 2 of the wipe. You can get an SVT, a class 3 armor, and a class 3 helmet. How does the game incentivize you to climb the ladder? Because that's the thing I have a hard time with, is that it's just like the game only incentivizes you to have the best stuff or the cheapest stuff and nothing in between. And that's, I think, a big part of the conversation nobody talks about when we talk about, like, nobody wants to PvP. Well, it's because, like, it's really hard to leapfrog that thing where you just have to be good at PvP to have fun at PvPing. And if you're not just good at PvP, you're just going to get stomped at PvPing, so you don't want to PvP. So, like, how do you get people to engage in the in-between?
The only incentive is give people money printers. And then money doesn't matter, so they can just buy the inefficiently expensive shit.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why anybody does.
Yeah.
The only reason why anybody is wearing slick and bringing in a modded out fucking like meta,
they have a bunch.
It's because they've got millions.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing to also keep in mind.
He's not saying that they should do that, chat.
Do what?
You're not saying that they should give everyone unlimited money. You're just saying, like, you're answering the question with.
Oh yeah. No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
This is what I said in chat earlier. The most fun, best time that Tarkov is the first 2 days after a wipe.
Yeah.
And it's because everybody is scrappy with level 2. People are unironically wearing P.A.K.as.
Yeah.
Because they actually matter. So, like, I'm perfectly fine making all of that stuff infinitely more rare and make a slick 3 times the durability it is now and make it class 9 and make it so that there's one a week that you'll come across ever. And then when everybody's running jank ass guns with like mixed ammo and red dots and shit, everybody's alive and having more fun for longer in raids.
I agree. No, I agree. I think it's like that's a good point. Like, what if you squished things towards the middle from both ends? If the best stuff in the game, dude, it's so funny. It's so funny. I can tell when I'm about to say something that I know some of these people on Twitter will be like, dude, they get it. Thank Christ. And then I can tell when I'm about to say something where there'd be like, this guy is so stupid. He doesn't want the guy. Dude, I can tell. It's funny. If you
self-awareness
like,
is
if you clockwork oranged anybody to watch this podcast, they would just like have so many. I don't know if they would think we are stupid or geniuses.
Well, this is what happens when real people use their minds and they think about stuff and they're intellectually honest enough to change their minds and to go back and forth and to say, we don't know. Yeah. It's crazy how you have interesting discussions.
I don't know. But what if we squeezed it from both ends, right? So what if your slicks and your mutants and like the best guns in the game and the best armors in the game and the best ammos in the game were less prevalent, like you said, harder to come by, maybe even better. Maybe even a slick is legitimately class 9 armor and better, but you run into one so infrequently. So what if you compress it from that end and compress it from this end? Because I think this is important too. Like, in my opinion, the SVT is too powerful of a gun that you get too early to ever want to use anything in between the SVT and the best stuff. Because the value proposition of anything like the SVT you get at level 2 trader, nothing you get at level 3 proper has a better value proposition than the SVT. Nothing you get at level 4 proper is a better value proposition than what you get from the SVT. It's only when you get to like level 42 and unlock like max mechanic where you can buy like the suppressor for the MP7 and now you've got a dope MP7 or whatever. So what if we compressed it from that end too? And I know some of you are freaking out right now because you're like, if I don't have, so many people think if I don't have my Vepr Hunter or my SVT, I'm never going to be able to kill Chads. But once again,
the Chads aren't going to be rarer.
What if in this equation, they're compressed as well, where you have a Chad, but he doesn't have a face shield and he has a class 4 armor, not a class 6 armor on. What if that was it? And then,
what if they just designed the game in a way that made sense on any fucking level, like we've been saying for so long? And this is why this is why when people say, what if we just do X?
Yeah.
And I'm like the devil's advocate going, well, you have to realize that there's so many more. And everybody's like, Veritas just needs to disagree with everybody and just be a naysayer. And it's no, I just, for 5 years, all I've heard is, well, what if we just do X? Or Nikita say, well, we're just going to do X. Yeah. And I just see the problem never get solved. And it's because they never solve the problem. They just try to solve symptoms with Band-Aids, not to look at the core of the thing and, the core issues and solve them intelligently.
Despite what my YouTube comments say, I really do try to look at any solution I propose and how it would affect every player. And so it's funny because, like, tell me if you think this is a crazy train of thought. I think in that world, now, don't come at me with comments with like, well, what about this gun and this specific ammo? I don't know. We're talking generalizations here. In that world, I actually think the Chads have more fun too, because they might not have access to their slicks and they might not have access to their BP or whatever. But once again, if the whole ladder works, if every rung of the ladder works, you're going to find people at every rung of the ladder. Right now, one of the biggest complaints from the Chad community is that they only fight people with SVTs. And so once again, it's a vicious cycle. We don't have to go through it again. But if the absolute Chad monster destroyers were much rarer at the low end, and the absolute Chad monster gear was much rarer at the top end, then that means you would probably gear to what you thought your skill level was, which is what I think everybody wants, right? If you feel that you're mid-tier at the game, you're probably buying mid-tier gear and engaging in that way, because if in a game where you actually felt that the mid-tier gear was better than the low-tier gear, you would want it if you felt like that was at your skill level.
Because if you have mid-tier gear, if you are a 5 out of 10 skill level, but you have a 7 out of 10 gear, and someone else is the same skill level, but they've got 4 out of 10 gear, then you'll win more often.
Yes.
It's more skill-based.
Yes. And I truly don't think that would completely remove the ability for new players or rats or whatever to to take down people, because you'll always be able, once again, you'd be running into less slicks, less Altons, less this stuff. So you would have the opportunity to TT someone in the face, or Mosin somebody in the face, or ump someone in the face. You know what I mean? What is this?
When was the last time you saw anything like this? Slow walking with a fucking grotch with a light, with a flashlight in factory.
Dude, those flashlights though, holy cow.
Actually being like,
yeah, imagine a flashlight being a flashlight.
And this guy's running NVGs, a PACA, and an AK-74N that's actually modded, and he definitely had the highest chance of winning.
Yeah,
I just actually was able to outplay him.
Yeah. Once again, dude. Oh man, I really feel like I'm into this idea, because once again, it's one of those things where like the Band-Aid on top of the old PKO6 RIP.
Look at this fight. Look at this fight. Look at this fight. Come on now, dog.
Oh, I miss it.
It's literally.
But I don't even want this to just be like a nostalgia, whatever, because I don't want this to be like arguing over if the game was better. I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying.
And this isn't me trying to harp on the game being better. It's how fucking when the time to kill is longer.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And when your gear is more janky and everything is just less. They talk about my perfect flick one tap CS:GO 2 stuff, and it's more visceral, it's more real, it's more quote unquote hardcore. It's
And so that, like, I think, what I was gonna say was like, I feel like it's just people, the people who are like, man, I don't want to lose, I don't want to lose the ability to one tap a chat, or like how am I going to compete when all these chats run around? Like, I think that's a ping pong of like Band-Aid, where like we've talked about this before. When those video clips you were showing, what could you buy from the traders? 8 things, 8 guns, 4 armors, right?
An AK-74N with a black handle.
Yeah.
You could put a PKO6 on top, or you could have a PSO on the side, and you put a rubber butt pad.
Yeah. So what do? They add more guns, better guns. They add more armors, better armors. Where do they put it? On the traders. People who are good at PvP have higher access to stuff. People who aren't as good at PvP feel like, well, they need something better to be able to keep that spirit of Tarkov. So then they add the Vepr Hunter, but then they just add more armors, and then they add a better low tier gun, and then they add more armors, and then they add a better low tier gun. And it's like, that's why, like, I think both parties would be happier here. I think if these things weren't, if the high tier stuff wasn't as common, but then the low tier Chad killer wasn't as common, you would feel like you'd be able to, if you position yourself right or get a crazy headshot, you would feel like you'd be able to hit that shot with a grotch. You wouldn't feel like you needed an SVT. And if the latter felt fair and balanced, if you are a Giga Chad right now, you'd be using the best stuff you had available to you, yes, and it wouldn't be as good as what you have right now, but it'd be the best stuff available to you. But you would run into people running the best stuff they had available to them. That's the thing, is it's like you use the SVT until you're 42 with 80 million rubles. That is the best thing available to you until you just have an infinite amount of money. And so I could be wrong. Like I said, I totally could be wrong. I hold all my opinions with an open hand, not a closed fist. I don't think that like I've solved Tarkov, but I just think that like, I think this came from a part of the conversation where we said, and this is something I don't feel like enough people are asking, at least not publicly asking, is how do we incentivize the behaviors that we want? Everything comes from how do we de-incentivize the bad thing? How do we get people to stop ratting? How do we get people to do this? How do we get people to stop doing this? How do we get the Chads to stop running around? How do we get people to stop making so much money? How do we get people to stop doing this? But it's like, what is the behavior that we want out of the game? And tell me in the comments, is this a wrong thing to want out of the game? That people feel confident and trust the game enough to grow with their skill level, to want to bring better gear as they feel like they have better skill and just like grow up that ladder. It doesn't mean you never do hatchet runs. It doesn't mean you never do pistol runs or whatever, but it's just like, do you feel like you can do you trust the game enough to use anything other than an SVT? You know what I mean? So it's like, if we squish things from this end, I think everybody would have more fun. I think rats would have more fun. I think middle tier people would feel like they could use middle tier gear and enjoy it. And I think chads would have more fun because they'd fight more people who are more willing to fight. And then all of this is layered on top of what I talk about all the time, which is, if they did every single thing I said, which I'm not saying what I said is the perfect thing to do, but if I had the magic wand and they did every single thing I said, I do still believe that all of that, with the audio that we have and the netcode we have and the painkiller system we have, the game would still, like, I still think people would just ride. Like, I think obviously the core and most fundamental parts of the game are those things. But this conversation was more talking about Found and Raid and just these things. So I feel like I have to qualify that, because people are gonna be like, "This is all stupid." I agree, right? The sound is the most important thing. The networking, those are the most important things. But I do think that we arrived at some interesting conclusions here. The only other part of this was, like I said, the coming of the side of we should remove Found and Raid because it promotes more people cheating. My opinion on that is that might be a percentage point of why people turn to RMT. I would say more people turn to RMT because the economy is scuffed in such a way that, you know, you can buy 7,000 rounds of BP and all this stuff on eBay for $2 because it's so easily attainable for whatever. And then I also think that, like, people turn to RMT because the game is not fair. And not fair is in Tarkov, it's supposed to be fair. The base game is not trustworthy. Like I said, I actually think that the audio and the netcode and that kind of stuff push people to RMT more than Found and Raid. And maybe I'm wrong there, but
yeah, you want, like, it's not unreasonable to say, okay, if I'm gonna invest X amount of hours into the game, I want, like, a nest egg to be able to invest into the X future hours with the gear I want, or to do the things I want, right? Like, that's the way a lot of people look. The problem is that because of X issues, all these different issues, the people on the far end of the spectrum, they think, okay, how am I going to achieve this thing where I can use the guns and the gear that I want every raid?
Yeah.
Well, considering that you're going to die like 80% of the time just naturally because you're bad and you're new, and then some other percentage of the time you actually do well, but then the game cucks you anyway. Yeah. So it's like, I will never be able to run the gear I want.
Yeah.
I'll never be able to do whatever. So then they turn to RMT. Now, we also can't forget that none of us know anything about how common RMT is.
Yeah.
How many people? None of us know. We have no idea. For all we know, it could be just like the flea market bots, where people are pointing to this thing. People were so sure they were flea market bots.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no way that anybody will be able to prove or demonstrate it because it's ancient history now.
Yeah.
But I'm fully convinced that there was like 7 flea market bots.
Yeah.
And that 99% of the issues that we experienced that seemed like bots were just normal behavior inside of a broken system.
Yeah.
But it's like people assume RMT is this common, and it's almost always because a couple of brain dead cheating scumbags had some interviews with some brain dead streamers and wanted to pretend like they've got, you know, big dicks or something, and they, you know, I make fucking $300,000 a year from all this RMT, and so untrustworthy sources and assumptions about how common an issue is that is the underlying cause of another problem, cheating, for which we don't have any idea how common or how prevalent. So it's an unknown with an unknown causing an unknown that causes an unknown.
For sure. Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. And the other side, like people are mentioning some other things. Yes, everything we've talked about is only part of the equation for A, why people cheat or RMT, or B, how to fix things. Of course, things like the skills and they could be reworked that to incentivize or disincentivize types of behaviors. The stims absolutely need to be rebalanced, right? When it's just pay to get rid of the weight system, it's literally pay to win weight system. If you have enough money for a Trimadol and an SJ6 and a mule, you just don't have the weight system, basically. The global limits and like how that's another thing people are talking about around, where it's like how there's global and personal limits and just like some really bad ammos that nobody really cares about. They're not the best, just like are perma sold out. And it's just like super weird and frustrating. Like all these things play into the experience as well. And we don't have time to go into all of them. I think we talked about some super interesting things and came to some super interesting conclusions. I can't believe you like completely convinced me that the hatchling apocalypse would basically never come back. I was like, man, I've been singing that song. I was like, dude, if we remove Found Array, man, all the hatchlings are going to come back. Like you convinced me that that's not going to happen. So I went on a journey here, but I do still think
if I didn't convince you of that, then I would have wanted to convince you that hatchlings are better than Mosenlings or better than SVT-lings.
Well,
they're less toxic.
Yeah. Well, that's I had come into this conversation with a respect of that opinion. Like, because everybody was like, we should give her a Found Array. And then it was like, well, what about hatchlings? I was like, what about the hatchlings? Until a few people I saw finally just say, I'm not saying there wouldn't be hatchlings. I'm saying I would rather hatchlings than SVTlings. And then I was like, okay, I can respect that. But then you kind of really put me over the edge of like, oh, well, I don't even think they would ever come back anyway. But for sure, this is what I've been saying a lot recently. All of these things, everything I said, everything we talked about, economy stuff, it's so hard. We are looking through a broken windshield. Like, once again, I don't mean to beat this dead horse, but like it's hard to talk about what types of things would promote behaviors when the game's core mechanics promote really bad behaviors, right? If you can't trust what you can see, if you can't trust what you can hear, and if every mistake is punished by basically instant death because the painkiller system is so bad, and then a 10-minute queue because the queue system is so bad, it's hard to say. So it's like, I wish we had a better game because we would have better information on how players actually do want to engage with the game, and then we would have better suggestions to how to alter those things. So I love having these conversations, and I hope that this podcast shows that I love having these conversations in spite of how broken Tarkov is. But I will still, even after these great conversations, still maintain that without working audio, without a better netcode, without a better painkilling system, without a better matchmaking system, it's hard to actually have a baseline for how players want to engage in this game. You know, I brought this up the other day. If you go to youtube.com/JesseKazam, one of my most viewed videos of all time is how to get better at PvP.
I mean, my new player combat guide is like 800,000 views or something.
I think people want to PvP. I think people want to get better at this game. I think people want to climb that ladder. The mechanics of the game make that borderline impossible. And then on top of that, the economy and the found and raid system make that impossible. So I wish we could snap our fingers and fix the fundamental mechanics of the game, because then we'd be able to at least see where people land and then have much better feedback for the economy and the found and raid system of the game. But I do think it's fun and valuable conversation. And I've just gotten so triggered having this conversation with chat that I wanted to have it in an isolated where it was just you and me, and there was like, it's not 800, you know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, a bunch of people have also mentioned the whole, like, do you think they should have either like free loadouts or, you know, whatever? Like, I think that Tarkov would probably be a better game if you could spend 50,000 rubles and get like 150,000 rubles worth of gear. Yeah. Because that's really not that much gear, right? No. If it was like, you know, like one of the level 3 helmets,
yeah,
or even I don't know, maybe it was just like headphones, a rat rig, and like an SKS with a red dot,
yeah,
and like a 30-round mag,
yeah,
and then like some basic meds. If you could one-click buy something, it was heavily discounted, so it was super easy.
There was still a cost, but it was discounted, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so frustrated with repeatedly dying and having to put together kits. Let me put together a kit super fast, get a discount, not, and then I also instantly realized, because someone had just said, do you think people should have a default loadout for free, like Dark and Dark or something, like a pistol in a bag? And I just responded with, I just thought scav runs. Like scav runs are that like kind of regular.
Yeah.
Here's some free stuff on a timer.
Yeah.
Which
I still don't think that would be a bad idea. I actually, because of scav runs, think the way you posed it would be the better idea, where there is a cost associated. It's not free. It's cheaper. It's a bundle discount, and it uses their preset system. So it's just like, boom, I can go.
Because then what you're giving people the option, because now they think, do I put together something that even the most basic of kits, you either put together a basic kit, full kit, that's like 300,000 rubles for some basic bullshit, or you invest the minimal amount possible, which is just a gun and some ammo and nothing else, which ends up being 60,000 rubles, 50,000, whatever the prices are these days.
Yeah.
Or hatchling. And it's like, if the first one I said, the like low mid-tier full kit where you have meds, you have some kind of decent optic red dot, whatever, you have usable passable ammo and some protection against the most basic like Taz scavs. If that is 50,000 rubles, everybody has 50,000 rubles. To be able to invest in that, it would make no sense to be a hatchling. And it wouldn't make any sense to be an SVT-ling. Because you're actually gonna have a better chance of surviving with a little bit of armor. And even like an SKS that has a couple of mods that make it easy to shoot. Then, so
I think something along that lines is good, and I don't think it's a bad idea to be incentivizing PMCing a little bit more. This might be a JesseKazam's hot take, but I feel like scavving is out. It's just getting out of control. If you're a PMC, you want more people to be PMCing than scavs. I do scav runs. I do scav armies. We've talked about before. I don't think you should be able to pick where you should scav. Something like that would immediately make that 50,000 kit so much more valuable over a scav run. Because if I want to go here, then I'll do this instead of my scav, right? Because I don't know if I'm
and you can do quests, and make progress and whatever. And scavs are fun for people, but at the same time, when you're not scavving, scavs are cancer,
dude. It's cancer, So, to be honest, I haven't seen a single SVT naked guy, bro. Go to Interchange. Me and Valiant were trying to finish Long Line, where you have to kill 30 PMCs in the mall. So they reduced the, so they added the SVT this wipe. They reduced the tracksuit from 100 kills to 50 kills, and they made Killa now only spawn in one location instead of 30. What do you think Interchange is right now? It's 11 guys with flashbangs, SVTs, shattered masks, and then me and Valiant. That's it. It
sounds like a fucking hot college party.
500% more people now want to get tracksuit because it's half as much. It's easier to get because he's easier to farm. And they added they should change the SVT's name to the Killa farming gun in the game, because it's just like, if you want to farm Killa, why bring anything else? He's so broken and that gun is so good, right? So it's like, dude, the Interchange is just SVTs. It's crazy.
And everything we've been talking about, everything we've described, it's all about the meta. Like what we're describing is meta, like just fundamentally. And what I mean by meta is not the cheapest, because there are guns that are cheaper. It's the most value
per
ruble. The most efficient. Like back in the day, it was when the Mosin came out, you could invest 30,000 rubles into a Mosin, and that would, so think about it. You had a hatchling. You have a 0.01% chance of killing a PMC and walking out with their gear as a hatchling. You really need to catch them like texting their girlfriend with like TikTok up on a second screen while they're AFK, thinking nobody else is in the raid, to be able to kill them. The moment they introduced viable gun, super cheap, no more hatchlings, they were Mosinlings, because now your chances are like 40%. Would you invest nothing and have a 0.0% chance Or would you rather invest a little bit and get 4,000% increase? Or would you then this is the problem. Then the next step up is invest 100 times that and get a 1% increase in your.
Yes. So
it's all about.
Yes. That's exactly it. Is that like, and that's what I was talking about. We're the middle of the ladder. That's what I'm talking about. Like there's no growth in the ladder. Yeah, exactly. You hit a point at a really low level where you're like, oh, investing 50,000 rubles increases my chance of survival by 500,000%. And then investing 250,000 rubles only increases it another single percent. Why would I do that?
Returns are insane, which makes for cancerous combat because you either like you almost always feel like you are on the losing end of the deal because you either lose to the guy who invested less than you, or you win against the guy that invested less than you, and your reward is garbage. So it's just like a lose-lose for the average person who wants to invest in gear and progression and whatever. And I forgot what the other thing I was gonna say was. Shit. What did I just say?
We're talking about the.
We both got totally distracted by chat, and fuck.
Yeah.
Well, this is where like if I had a cricket like sound effect I would have on my thing. Fuck. Well,
the value proposition, not meta
diminishing returns. Right. So I was saying how investing in the stuff is not worth it. The people that decide that they want to, their reward for winning fights against people who don't is garbage. And then losing to the people with garbage, it feels doubly worse.
Garbage, yeah.
But yeah, there was some other thing that I was gonna say that I fucking forgot off of the back of that. Maybe it'll come to me. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Great conversation though. This is what I needed. Like I needed some good Tarkov conversation where, because my mind has been completely changed on a few things, and I feel like we had some good conversations. So I don't know. Of course, there's lots of issues. Of course, cheating is a problem, and that's completely separate than the other things. And it's like, I don't know. There's just a lot of things, but I just felt like there was some valuable stuff here. So yeah, found in raid, scuffed mechanic, but the game is sufficiently scuffed that
my heart, my soul, my brain. We are both completely off the rails because of chat saying shit like, but isn't that Tarkov? You bring more gear for a better chance of survival, but not a 100% chance. What we're talking about here is,
of course, that's
a 0.0001% chance is what we have now, and that's not what Tarkov is.
Yeah.
Tarkov is not a game designed so for you to experience diminishing returns in your investment in time.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's not what Tarkov is about.
Exactly. And that's what I say all the time, where people are like, well, you can't change the economy because casuals need a way to kill chads. It's like, you do, but you don't need a way to kill chads 90% of the time. Like that would obviously be skewed. Nobody would ever run any gear. Chance doesn't mean 80% chance, and that's we're talking about that on the back end. Of course, Tarkov is about no matter what you bring, you don't have 100% chance of survival. But like the deltas need to be more than just 0.01%.
Yeah, much closer to right now. We have like a fucking L-shaped in whatever the axes are, an L-shaped fucking graph. When I think we need much closer to a bell curve.
Yeah,
where in terms of skill and investment, where I want there to be a reasonably proportional benefit to being better at the game and using better stuff.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no point to using better stuff. And if there's no point to using better stuff, then there's no point in progressing. If there's no point in progressing, why am I going to play the fucking game?
Exactly.
If I'm not rewarded for getting better, then there's no point in being skillful. I might as well just go and run and loot safes and stuff it in my ass and sell it.
Exactly. Right? And making it reasonable, like you said, I want that too. Making that a reasonable number instead of what I would say, which is an unreasonable right now, doesn't get rid of the spirit of Tarkov. In every other game, if I'm 50 levels higher than you and have the best gear in the game and you have the worst gear in the game, you can't kill me. The spirit of Tarkov is that that's even a possibility. It needs to be a reined-in, reasonable possibility. Like, does that not compute? It's the same thing when we talk about the painkillers, and I'm like, the adrenaline effect or something, like I should be able to move when I get shot, and they're like, well, that's the spirit of Tarkov, man. And it's like, no, it's not. In every other game in the world, when you get shot, all of your health and armor is just like a magical pool that you just like, and it just comes back up. The fact that it's even in the game that you have to limp and then rely on painkillers that is the spirit of Tarkov. It can be changed. It can be made better. The fact that it's even in the game, that's the spirit of Tarkov. The fact that you can kill me with one shot if I'm careless is the spirit of Tarkov. It should still be reasonable though. Like,
yeah, and the whole, isn't it the spirit of Tarkov that X? All that is a gussied up version of saying, you just want the game to be different, bro. The game isn't for you if you don't like the way the game is. Yeah. Because the premise is that the way the game is now is the way it is the spirit of Tarkov, 100%, right?
Man. It's the way it was intended to be.
It's like, no, you can't articulate in a couple sentences what the spirit of Tarkov is. You watch my fucking video as Tarkov gone in the wrong direction, and you full screen that shit, and you listen to the music while you walk through the thing in the environment. That you need to experience it. Tarkov is about experience. It's not about money. It's not about rubles. It's not about any of those things. So you can't simply explain it.
Two thoughts on that.
And that's the reason why Tarkov it's the reason why Tarkov is remotely unique amongst the massive pool of all of the gun games in history.
Yep.
And it's why it got as popular as it did, and it blew up like it did.
Yep.
That is the reason.
For sure. Two things on that. One, if you think that everything in the game is in the game because it's in the spirit of Tarkov, know that Veritas had to educate Nikita about a bug with how damage was being propagated through the body that he was unaware of, that was in the game for 3 years, that the entire community actually thought was how it was supposed to happen. It wasn't hardcore. It was a bug. And nobody at PSG knew. Holy shit. And then the second thought there is, we actually, I reminded myself of this the other day. We had the big man on the podcast. I need to find the clip. Do you remember one of my questions? What to Nikita was, what's the perfect raid? Because I kind of wanted to box him in, right? On like, he wants people fighting. He wants people PvPing. He wants people looting or whatever. And you know what he said the perfect raid was? An experience that you remember. Something you want to tell people about. Okay? So that's the vision of Tarkov from the man himself. All right? Spawning in and getting spawn killed 8 seconds into a raid from a guy that just spawned in, turned, and killed me. That's not the vision. That's not the hardcore freaking vision, right? Finding a quest item, getting shot in the leg by Sniper Scav, limping around, unable to take painkillers while he just continuously... That's not a raid to remember. You know what I mean? It's like, there isn't... all the stuff isn't in the game just because it's hardcore. So much of the things we're complaining about are unintended consequences that they have put in the game. It's not...
Yeah. Like, I mean, you just think about all of the worst aspects of the game that people want to look at things and paint them in a certain way. So like, you spawning in and then getting insta-tapped across the map by a scav, that isn't a good thing. It's not, that isn't the spirit of Tarkov. It's
yep.
That being as common as it is, it's that, like you said, isn't the reason why Tarkov is Tarkov. It's not the spirit of Tarkov. The spirit of Tarkov is that when you're in a raid, that you have to fucking worry about all the things all the time.
Yep.
You could, now, this is complete fabricated, for the sake of discussion kind of thing, right? If you could constantly be worried about everyone at all times, never feel safe, and scavs could never actually kill you, the game would be achieving its goal. It's not about the scavs killing you. It's that you can't take for granted
that they're there.
Yeah. So we have to look at what the actual causes, what the actual things we're talking about. And again, I'm not saying that because we should turn off, because you turn off scavs' ability to kill you, well, then people get complacent and have to worry, right?
Yeah.
But you can't have you worrying about scavs be based on the fact that they're so unpredictably broken that you can die to bullshit at any time.
Yes. And here's
I want to be walking through customs at, while the sun's going down, and all of a sudden see 5 scavs walk, they're on like a fucking mission around the corner, and like, oh fuck, and a bunch of 5 drunken dudes with Tauses that are missing have a decent chance of killing you, and you shouldn't have been standing out in the open, not listening to your surroundings.
Exactly. I don't, scavs should absolutely be able to kill you, because if not, then you wouldn't have to worry about it. But that's the thing, is they shouldn't instant kill you. The raid comes from your ability to react. Your reaction is a one of fear, because you are concerned that they can kill you and they are a problem. And before people type in the comments, I know it's coming. That doesn't mean that Tarkov's vision is only to survive raids. Do you know how many raids I've had that I died, that I told people about, or that I spent, how many times I spent just sitting, laying awake at night after a stream being like, I can't believe I pushed that. Why did I repeat that? Like, when the game is set up in a way that you died in an epic fight, and you can understand why you died and figure out what to do better next time, that's still a memorable experience. That's still a thing. It's not at all about just always surviving raids. It's about not dying to things that give you nothing. You know what I mean? That completely don't add to the experience.
Yeah. Think about when I showed the fucking Red Dead Redemption 2 clip from earlier, me dying the first time around, when I wasn't in like first person, whatever, right? When I rolled up to the dude hanging by the tree, I died there.
Yeah.
And that was the coolest experience I had in the whole game.
Yeah.
It's not about surviving.
Yes.
It's about having the intended experience.
Yes.
And the intended experience should be, I am reasonably afraid of reasonable risks that I need to have reasonable knowledge and experience to be able to try to combat. And it's not guaranteed, and it's not easy.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, here's the thing. In a world where that happens, and you die to scavs, you're going to be frustrated in the best way, where it's like, fuck, that was incredible.
You're going to be frustrated in the intended way.
Yeah, but the problem is that people see you being frustrated with the game and say, frustration's the goal, right?
Yeah.
No. They're looking at the outcome and assuming that the outcome...
Yeah.
That anything that leads to the outcome is the intended design.
Yep.
It's not. You should be frustrated, it should be difficult, it should be hardcore, it should be punishing. But that doesn't mean, and all of the things that are hardcore and punishing and challenging and whatever, those lead to you dying and being scared.
Yeah.
In completely different ways than do broken netcode and scavs and cheaters.
Yep.
The end result is frustration.
Yeah. Dude,
but it's a different world.
It's a simple concept that people don't understand, man. We know this in life, right? If one of the goals in life is to acquire as much wealth as possible, robbing a bank is not on the list of things that is an acceptable way to get there. So it's like, if the goal of Tarkov is like experience and sometimes true frustration and fear, that doesn't mean that everything that produces those emotions is the acceptable way to get there. That's not what it means. And some people
can't. It's the
can't.
most basic bitch way of thinking.
I don't think some people try to consider that in Tarkov. I think, yeah, like you said, a lot of people, it's just like, it's frustrating. I didn't have fun. Tarkov's not supposed to be fun. You had the proper experience. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's not how it is.
You had the proper experience.
You had the proper experience. Holy cow, dude. I feel like I'm losing my voice. Well, yo, this was good. This was real good. I'm glad we talked about like the Red Dead stuff first, because I didn't realize that was going to end up being such a tangent. So, but yeah, holy cow. Thank you. I'll take this time. If you've made it this far into the podcast, then if you made it this far into this podcast specifically, you probably would be interested in the PP, which is patreon.com/thepodcastpod, where me and Veritas mauled about all sorts of other things in addition to Escape from Tarkov. But if you are interested in the podcast, if you like the podcast and want more content, we do extra episodes. You get early access to the episodes we do, ad-free access to some of the earliest episodes that we've ever recorded, which were, if you want to see some bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, BSG can do no wrong, JesseKazam, you find it in those episodes.
True that.
But, wow, good conversation. Thank you guys for hanging. If you're listening to this, as a reminder, also, we record these live on Veritas' channel, twitch.tv/Veritas, on Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. And you'll catch this, if you came in late as the live audience, you'll catch this on YouTube and all the podcast platforms on Monday, unless you're subscribed to the PP. But yeah, thank you guys for hanging. Good conversation. And we will definitely see y'all on the next one.
Peace.